Hello, everybody. Oh my gosh, who does that sound like? It's some lawyer that's been covering the Turtleboy Aidan Kearney case. Anywho, welcome in to the post-woke world. I'm going to jump into the subject matter in a second, but before I do, just to give people a couple seconds to come on in, because this is definitely impromptu. Let's just do a 2 or 3 minute unboxing of this game called the Illuminati, the game of conspiracy. Isn't that crazy? Steve Jackson Games, right? It's a special deluxe edition. Now, any respectable conspiracy theorist already knows about this game. I'm not telling them anything. They probably have a better version. But in case you never heard of the game, Illuminati, the game of conspiracy. Game designed by Steve Jackson. List a bunch of other people here. The object of the game, the strategy. Let's just look at some of the cards they have in here. Now, some people believe that some of these cards predict current, past, future events. The science fiction fan, any attempt to control. In this game, it's good to control weird groups and weird, just like any kind of weird group out there, And then if you can get two or three weird groups and you control them, it's great because you can totally create chaos. This is how they run the world, guys, in case you didn't know. Democrats. I mean, this game actually teaches you a lot about the world and how it's run. So I highly recommend it. Like here, look, the Semi-Conscious Liberation Army. They're criminal, violent, liberal, weird, and communist. I mean, right? I mean, what's crazier about this game is, guess when this shit was made? Guess when it was made? I think it was in like 1990 or something. It won Best Science Fiction Game of the Year. All right, guys. Anyway, let's talk about what we came here to do. I'll probably just do a separate show on this because this is a really interesting little nugget to know. All right, let's talk about the. Hey, Bookham Dan, what's up? How you doing? All right, so if you're new to the case that we're about to talk about, it's the Commonwealth of Massachusetts versus Aidan Kearney. He's also known as Turtleboy. A lot of people don't know why he's known as Turtleboy. It's because this weird statue in the middle of Worcester. And Turtleboy, he's named him the Turtleboy statue because the statue looks like it's having, I don't know, just fun with the turtle. It's a boy and a turtle. It's just really weird, guys. But anyway. And he's from Worcester. So he's facing criminal charges related to his coverage of the Karen Reed case. Prosecutors say his conduct crossed into witness intimidation. Kearney denies that and argues it was protected speech. It's freedom of speech. This is essentially a First Amendment case. Some charges have been dismissed. Others remain pending. And this update follows his court hearing on Friday, January 30th, 2026. So that's what I really want to talk about is the hearing. Now, before we get into the legal issues, I'm not an attorney, and I don't think I'm an attorney on YouTube. I'm a regular person like you guys. I have the disclaimers at the bottom. I'm telling you what my opinion is. I try to remain partisan, but I cannot tell a lie. I am 100% free Turtleboy because this is a First Amendment issue, and for me, First Amendment is just critical to being a human. Without it, we're not human without the First Amendment. We have to be able to speak, about things and what we see and hear. We have to be able to do that without fear of being harmed for it. Now, there's a legal and a moral issue at hand. It's not just one or the other, right? You can say legally freedom of speech and morally. Well, it's a birthright, first of all, for anyone, particularly if you were born in America, but I believe anywhere in the world, your birthright. You're free to speak. But, in America, the limit's been tested. And we'll get to that later. Let me just finish this. So before we get into that, though, we'll probably acknowledge the side dramas, all right? Because this case has collected a lot of them. Many of these aren't about evidence or law. They're about ego, attention, and people confusing a loud reaction with a meaningful contribution, okay? And there's a lot of side dramas. There's like expanding universes of side dramas in this case. I think more than any other case I've ever followed. But they drama and how these things show up in these cases are always about the same thing. You're looking at the same thing happening in this Aidan Kearney Free Turtleboy, Free Karen Read movement that you will see in probably the Sebastian Rogers. You guys probably don't even know who that is, but I followed that a little bit. He was a kid. Maybe you do if you follow my channel or whatever. But that there's a whole sub community of expanding dramas over there too that are completely irrelevant to the legal matter at hand. Okay, so what we're seeing here in the Turtleboy case is no different than any other legal drama and probably any other drama period. And so the difference, though, that I believe is the drama is to me, it's more interesting. And I don't typically get into gossip and stuff, but the reason it's interesting to me is because it's men. It's mostly men. And I just don't understand how we got into this space where we have men online gossiping about one another. I mean, that's hilarious to me. I mean, I'm just going to say, like, there's always been men who are a little more feminine and they like to gossip with the girls, whatever. I'm not putting anyone down for that. I'm just saying, like, I don't expect men to be gossipers. And that's what's happening in the Turtleboy thing. And it's just weird. It's just really weird. And people really do fixate on Turtleboy once they don't like him. Anyway, so a lot of it is. It's about ego. It's about attention. People confusing, these loud reactions and this righteous anger with something that's meaningful, a meaningful contribution. These are not meaningful contributions. Okay. When people just get on there and start, trying to undermine Aidan Kearney, whether it be someone who used to, cover him and no longer covers him, or an ex-girlfriend, an ex, whatever, or just some bored housewife who drinks wine and now suddenly hates him because he said one wrong thing. These people get really angry with him and they focus on it way too much. It's insane. Okay. It's really insane. But to me, it's a testament to what he does, which is he tells you the truth, whether you like it or not. Okay. Anyway, sorry. So we are seeing a lot of like repeated crash outs in the Karen Read, or I'm going to call it the Aidan Kearney case now. Public meltdowns, personal feuds that somehow are being framed as principled stands, and they're just not. They're just not. When you start arguing with people about things that are incredibly petty and make it into some big thing like, oh, well, these are not principled arguments. You're like on the lowest level. Like, come up a bit, get some culture, learn about some philosophy, learn about some different ways to look at things. Don't get down in the dirt with the pigs. It's just, like I said, the funniest part to me is that it's men. I mean, the women, women do that. I will say I'm not a gossiper. I really am not. I will not say anything behind your back that I won't say to your face. Okay. And I said this the other day. Anybody who talks shit to you about another person when they're not around, talk shit about you to that person when you're not around. They're not a friend. Anyway, back to the case at hand. Let's get down to business. I don't got no time to play around. What is this? Must be a circus in town. Let's shut the shit down on these clowns. Can I get a witness? Hell yeah. Sorry. All right. What we're seeing are repeated crash outs, impulsive. Okay. All right. So they're not principled things. It's not specific to this movement, but this is what we're talking about right now. So we talk about how most of these side dramas really have nothing to do with the actual case against Turtleboy. Okay, they really don't. There are lots of different people trying to tear him down and smear him publicly, and actually trying to get him thrown back in jail. And it's just, what's the phrase? Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Oh my, as Ray from Dallas would say. Oh my, do we have a woman scorned on our hands? A woman who spent a big part of the time that Aidan Kearney was going to motions for his trial, by his side, helping him, devoted to him, who now devotes, from what I can see on X, all of her time to tearing him down, and even going so far as to try to get him in jail. And that honestly hurts me for Aidan Kearney. It really does. Like, I feel the pain that he feels from this betrayal. And the reason I feel it and I can empathize so strongly is because it's happened to me. And not once, not twice, not even 3 times, guys. 4 times it's happened to me. But guess what? I was a full-on participant in it. I knew what was going on. A lot of it's trauma bonding, honestly, and just shit you got to work out from your childhood. But yeah, I repeated it over and over and over again. I will never repeat that again. I know why I did it. I know what it was. That was never love. That was a toxic trauma bond. Anyway, side tangent. Don't want to really focus on that because honestly, I feel bad for all parties involved, her and him. Why? Because the betrayal on his end, and then her, I hope that she is able to let this go. When you focus on that much negativity on one person and hatred, it will give you cancer, and it will age you faster than you, like nobody's business. I've seen it. I have seen it. Forgive, forget. I never forget, honestly, but I always forgive. All right, anyway. So that kind of stuff, regardless, isn't really analysis. It's very ego-driven. They're trying to just sort of get attention. Some of them are just purely views-driven. They just want more money, They just, whoever can shout the loudest, sound more righteous in their indignation, whoever's more animated or angry. But like I said before, it's not falling with me anyway. I don't know how anybody else feels, men and women out there. It's just odd to me to see men behaving this way. It really is. And now I'm recognizing why people say like, oh, this generation's different than mine and stuff. Only a lot of these men are around my age. So I'm just really confused right now. Anyway, hello, doll. So good to see you, as usual. So anyway, moving on. So like many modern legal stories, like we talked about, a lot of these have this one in particular has its expanding universe of these dramas. But they really don't have anything to do with the evidence, like I said. And what I want to do now is go over the actual hearing. And so it's really kind of interesting that right now in America, we have someone who is living, I think, Broken Baker. If you don't follow Broken Baker, you definitely should, because he is very witty, and very handsome as well. Broken Baker, if you're watching this live stream, you should know you're very handsome, unless you have a wife, and then you're just a nice looking guy. Okay, I don't want to overstep my boundaries. And I didn't ask him personally if I could use his stream, but this is me asking now. So if he gets upset or whatever, I'll take it down. It's not a big deal. But what's interesting is he lives in another country. I don't know which country. And if I did, I wouldn't dox him. Probably tells us. In fact, I think he has a flag back there. Anyway, bottom line is he was able to broadcast this, right? But here, people are too afraid because of the rules and the regulations and all the bullshit, right? So, I'm going to rebroadcast it. Like I said, I hope I don't get anything in the mail about this because, it's like, this is for educational purposes, and I believe the public has a right to see this. I believe that the public also has a huge interest in this case because it is a First Amendment case. And it could potentially go all the way up to the Supreme Court. Oh, although I will say I highly, highly doubt that. Regardless, let's jump into it, guys. Yeah, I'll address this before I get, and then once I start going through the court stuff, I won't check chat as much. You know how I get distracted over here because I love talking to you guys. But she doesn't. But I'll tell you something. I made a video where I kind of said some things, and then I spoke out on, I don't know if it was Ray for Dallas Spaces or something, and I regretted it. I mean, I wasn't nasty about it or anything. I just said she should have humility. And, I feel like this isn't very Christian. And because she definitely holds herself out as a Catholic, I think, or Christian. But then I heard her talk and like she still has this real fear of being arrested again. And even though last night Turtleboy was talking about how there's no way it could happen, I don't know if you can get rid of that fear and from all that trauma she'll probably live with the fear that these people in Massachusetts are going to arrest her for the rest of her life until she gets the F out of Massachusetts. I think that's a fair paranoia to have if you're Karen Reed. I think that's perfectly fair. In fact, if I were Karen Reed, I'd be afraid, and I'm not saying she should be, but I'm just saying I personally would be afraid to be driving in a car speeding and being pulled over by a Massachusetts state trooper. These people are pissed because she won, deservedly so. She's innocent. But, they're still angry. And all they can do now is go after Turtleboy. And if they can bring her back in any way, shape, or form, they're going to. So that's why I stayed out of it and judge. I hate to judge. And then I got irritated at one point. Because I'm like, come on, what is it? Just say it, Karen. What's going on? And she finally did. She spoke out. And, she didn't know that to me or anybody. But I'm glad she did because I had a better understanding. It made me more humble about, okay, just slow my roll. Anyway. Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's take a look, guys. And I'm going to minimize me because that's not important here. This is Broken Baker, and please subscribe to him if you are not. And give him a like on the video that we are watching. Just going to make sure the volume's up here. 1 second.
Hey, Opal Gypsy. We just started, so we just got a feed through from the court, and the judge isn't in the room yet. No, I don't want that. Where did the other one go? I want this one. But there's no audience in court.
My coaches say I have really good.
Did you hear that? Something about a coach saying something?
What was that?
Yeah, it's Benaro's motion, so he will be arguing that if we ever get to argue the motion. Yes, we hear it. Good. Then I don't have to be afraid. Is it true Turtleboy has a tailor in Panama that makes his suit to conceal the half shell? Yes, heroes in a half shell. Turtle power.
That's awesome. Broken Baker is hilarious, honestly.
Oh. Have to head into work, so I'll catch up on the replay too. Alfie, we're going to see you later. And have a great day at work and enjoy your Friday. No, my podcast didn't talk about having a great coach.
All right, let me just forward this a little bit.
Oh, I feel like hell, but I just...
You should not be using pillows like these if you're a side sleeper. What they're doing is causing a lot of
2 rows of audience back here. But why haven't people... It must be nice to get... New judge on today. Just a pre-trial hearing. Oh, that's...
I'm just looking here
No,
because...
those, again, it's a pre-trial hearing. There's nothing there.
Oh my gosh, this is taking so long. Sorry, guys.
A lot of... Yeah, he was streaming just... You have all the ATBs, the anti-Turtleboy. And then you all know someone else has made a lot of trouble. So I'm glad that there's a big support today to show that Aidan still have the full support of a lot of people. Oh, he was wearing a Clint Eastwood t-shirt. Yeah, that makes no sense.
We are.
Quit, all rise, please. Honorable court in session, please be seated.
Good morning, Your Honor. Before the court is the matter of Commonwealth versus Kearney on Norfolk dockets 2382 CR 00313 and 2582 CR 0088. Mr. Kearney is present. Counsel, please identify themselves for the record, beginning with the Commonwealth.
Good morning, Your Honor. I'm Robert Cosgrove.
Good morning, Attorney Cosgrove.
Good morning, Your Honor. Timothy Bradle on behalf of Aidan Kearney.
Good morning, Mr. Cosgrove. Mr. Bradle.
For Mr. Kearney, Mark Federer. Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Mr. Federer. Okay, just to be clear, we've accommodated as many people as we can in the audience. I understand there are some folks outside. The court has opened the matter to Zoom primarily because of the weather and the parking conditions. I'm not going to say that we're going to have it on Zoom every single time, but to those who can't be in the courtroom right now, we are broadcasting by Zoom. I further note the court was prepared to come out at 9, but the delay was due to the late arrival of some of the counsel. So with that.
Ooh, who's in trouble? Who showed up late, guys?
I would remind all parties who are attending by Zoom that any rebroadcast, if you are not qualified under SJC Rule 1.1119, rebroadcast is prohibited. Those who are qualified and have registered are certainly free to rebroadcast as appropriate. So, with that, my intention today is to cover papers 110, 117 in part, 125, and 127. Those are the matters which deal with the request for the recusal or removal of Mr. Cosgrove as counsel for the Commonwealth. Now, before we begin that, particularly Mr. Bedro, just to you, and I know Judge Doolin may have talked to you about this a little bit. Going forward, we don't file affidavits as motions. Rule 13 requires a motion to be a motion. It can be supported by a memorandum of law, can be supported by an affidavit. The matter we're here for today, there is in fact no motion on file. I'll take it as it sits because it's been responded to. But going forward, if you want to file a motion, it has to be a motion. It has to be clearly captioned as to what you're looking for. Further, it has to deal with one subject at a time. I'm not going to do motions that deal with the entire kitchen sink. It's going to be one motion at a time. It's going to be clearly noted. If you want to put a memorandum of law, again, you have to reference the motion you're dealing with. Further, if you want to put an affidavit, the affidavit has to reference the motion that you've filed. If you want to put in a supplemental motion or a supplemental memorandum, it has to list the paper number that you're talking about. Going through this over the last several days and trying to figure out what I'm dealing with took an amount of time, which is kind of absurd, because I'm trying to trace back what you're talking about, and I can't find the motion because it doesn't exist. So I understand you're not local to Massachusetts. Mr. Bradel is extremely experienced and quite good at drafting these things. So,
because I was going to say that's my fault. I'm local counsel. I should have made sure that was that way, and we'll make sure that going forward.
And I know.
All right, we're going to talk about this right here. Here's the first thing I want to talk about. Okay. I've heard things. I've heard people criticizing Tim Bradel for this. I've heard all kinds of stuff. And I want to walk it back for a second. I want everybody to think about something. All right. So first of all, it's true. In New York, and I'm not an attorney. I just went online and I learned about this. Okay. It's not hard. You can believe me or not, but it's true. In New York, it's different than Massachusetts. In fact, every state is somewhat different with their customs and procedures. And you have to play by the locals' rules, right? We know this. Massachusetts happens to be one of these real uptight states. Maybe it's because it's the Puritan roots, the WASPs up there that founded it. They came over on the Mayflower. They tend to be very, very uptight, and they really want things done by the procedural, it's very like, it's got to be done this way, which is the right way, allegedly, or the common way, I guess, throughout law. But some states over time maybe get a little more, not lax, but just have different customs. So where could this disconnect happen? So a New York attorney, Mark Bredero, who's very sharp, and I am just continually more and more impressed by him. Anyway, might reasonably expect that strong allegations and argument are sufficient, and that the court will infer the procedural vehicle if the substance is serious. But in Massachusetts, the judge is going to say, well, if your concerns are noted, you haven't, fine, you told me, but you didn't ask me. You're telling me, but you're not asking me, essentially what the judge is saying. And because he's what's considered pro hoc vice, which means he's using his New York license in Massachusetts under the guidance of Tim Bradel, right? Essentially, it means you're allowed to argue, but you have to argue the Massachusetts way. Okay, that's just the way it is. So it's difficult whenever there's a pro hoc vice, right? But it's not impossible. So essentially what the judge is saying here is it's the wrong tool, it's the wrong procedure, it's the wrong record. And he's saying it fairly bluntly, I think, which doesn't put me off at all, honestly. I prefer it that way, and I bet you Mark Bredero would too. But the takeaway is the two states obviously differ, and a New York lawyer can ask for recusal the wrong way in Massachusetts, just like a Massachusetts lawyer could ask for recusal the wrong way in New York or some other state, okay? So it's basically Massachusetts is more concerned with procedure than substance. So why then, or what might be the reason that Tim Bradel didn't know about this blub from his co-counsel? Like, what could be the possible reason, right? So there's quite a few actually that have nothing to do with what some people are saying Tim Bradel is an idiot, because he's not. Okay, he's definitely not an idiot. All right. So there's actually I'll tell you which one I think it is, but I'm going to go through a few reasons why this may have happened. One is, Tim Bradel probably thinks, look, Federer's seasoned. He's big shot, big time in New York. He knows what the procedures are in Massachusetts. I don't got to tell him. And honestly, it's a lot of people probably think that way, if you think about it. Even as a colleague, like if you think about a colleague that you really, really respect, right? Or someone that you really respect, and they're doing something kind of under your wing, okay? You just know they're just on point all the time. They're very sharp, their due diligence, all that stuff. it's possible. I believe this is true. I think it's possible you may not say, hey, let me check, make sure you did that right, out of sort of respect, because you just assume like they're so good and you don't want to make them think you think they're incapable. I think that happens a lot, honestly. It wouldn't happen to me because I have to communicate to people. I have to ask. I'm not going to make an assumption. But I do think that it happens. And I shouldn't say it wouldn't happen to me. I'm sure it's happened to me. It's just that generally it's not going to happen to people who are direct. All right. And these lawyers are direct. They're not afraid to talk to each other. I don't believe that. But anyway, so what are other reasons? Okay. What are other reasons? Well, maybe they didn't really break down like their division of labor. Like they didn't say, okay, Mark, you're going to do, the strategy and substance, and Bradel, you're going to take care of procedures. Maybe they're both they haven't delineated that. Again, I find this very unlikely, although it's possible. But, it's also possible that they weren't really thinking it was going to get raised. And I don't think that's true either. I mean, the judge, we were all clearly waiting for a response from the judge, right? We thought for weeks that Cosgrove wasn't going to respond. And now we know why, because this judge is saying there was no motion. And procedurally in Massachusetts, if there's no motion, then there's no required response. Tim Bradel knows that, obviously. The judge says it to him. Mark Betterow also obviously knows that. And I don't believe for a second that these two haven't sat down and talked about strategy. They're not just winging it with Turtleboy's case. This is the First Amendment. Mark Betterow comes out of New York to go into Turtleboy's defense team. Okay. I'm pretty sure he has a big interest in protecting the First Amendment for all of us. So he's not winging anything. And Tim Bradel isn't either, because the reason Turtleboy chose Tim Bradel is because of his passion for the First Amendment. This is all my opinion, but I think if you think about it, it does make sense. So even though some might think this is the least likely possibility, I think this was the most likely possibility as to why this happened. It was a strategic gamble. What do we mean by that? Some attorneys are willing to test things that aren't perfect. In fact, they may do a test that's imperfect to see how the judge reacts. What's he going to do? Look, this is my belief. Okay. Mark Betterow puts a lot of work into his, to the affidavits. Okay. He's not stupid. He knows, he watched the Kearney trial. He knows what the procedures are. Okay. But he's able to quote, play like dumb in a sense, only once though, play dumb in a sense, because he's pro hoc vice. And Tim Bradel, people, he's dumb. He didn't. No, of course he knew. They both knew. I believe this, in my opinion, speculation, this was a strategic gamble. They want to see how this judge going to react. Because if you're going to do the art of war, which if you don't know about, you should read about. If you're going to do art of war, you got to know your opponents. You have got to know your opponent. Number one, you can't win the war if you don't know who you're fighting. 1 second. Go on. Go on, boy. It's so cold out there. Sorry. Puppy break. You can't win the war if you don't know who you're fighting. You can't just a little bit know your opponent. You got a lot of it know your opponent. Okay? So that's what they're doing. They're checking them out. Now, the judge is a little miffed. Oh, I got to do all this reading. I didn't understand. I had to look through all this stuff. Guess what, Judge? This is a complicated case. This is a complex case. Hopefully you watched the Kearney trial, and hopefully you've been keeping up with this. not being sarcastic. I'm being dead ass honest because this case is very complex. If you just look at the drama online and also the way the police behaved, you know. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is the great Mark Betterow, in my belief, took and the great attorney Tim Bradle took a strategic gamble. Maybe I'd be curious to know if Tim Bradle knows anything about this judge, because this is in Boston now. They're in Suffolk County. And remember, even though James Jackson and I can't remember his name, the guy he's with all the time, they used to always say, oh, this would never work. This wouldn't fly in Boston for Karen Reed. Well, I don't think that this is going to fly in Boston for Turtleboy. There's no way a jury of his peers is going to find him guilty of this. Okay. It's just not going to happen. This is Boston, guys. So anyway, even if it wasn't, though, I'm telling you, it's not Massachusetts. No, I don't believe he'll ever be convicted. But here, so what they're doing is they're raising an issue imperfectly, knowing the court may reject it procedurally in order to preserve it, test the judge's temperature, and build a record. That can be intentional, and I believe that it was. It doesn't mean that I know that's what it was. I'm just saying that's what I think it was, you know? So anyway, without any speculation, though, what can we say about it? Well, there's a difference in procedure in Massachusetts. The Pro Hoc Vice Council can be tripped up by local custom, and judges will enforce that strictly. That's what we can say without speculation, right? Most of the reasons why this could happen are pretty boring and mundane, but the one that I just talked about, meaning strategic gamble, is rather interesting. And if you've been following Mark Betterow's commentary online, you know what a sharp guy he is. So to me, that's what happened in my opinion.
The paper number 127 is more in the form that we used to in this court. So I just want to remind everybody where we're at. And again, not familiar with the area, that's okay. Just going forward, I don't want to have to.
Grainger knows that if you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is all.
Sort of parse through what we're dealing with, nor do I want to have to hear from Mr. Cosgrove saying there's no motion filed, because it's a pretty good point on his part. So with that, let's take up the matters that are before the court. You're the moving party. I don't know who wants to argue, Mr. Bradle or Mr. Betterow.
Mr. Betterow, Your Honor.
We'll hear from you.
Thank you.
Understand, I've looked at all your motions as well as all of the exhibits.
May I, Your Honor?
You may.
Counsel states that a recent conflict of interest has developed, which ethically precludes him from continuing to prosecute matters in which Lindsay Gaetani is an alleged victim or party. Those are the words of Mr. Cosgrove on September 24th, 2025, regarding his request to be removed from another indictment in which Lindsay Gaetani was a witness, and we'll get to in this argument why she may very well be a witness in this case.
Witness is different from victim, correct?
I'm sorry?
Witness is different from victim, right?
Of course. But as we'll get to, Your Honor, if a prosecutor or anyone has a personal interest that may differ from Commonwealth's or to a defendant's right to a fair trial, that's something that has to be factored in. The point of that comment, Your Honor, is that Mr. Cosgrove acknowledged that there was a conflict arising out of Ms. Gaetani's claims against him. She has accused him of unprofessional and unethical conduct and has sued him. He draws the line.
I note that the last docket entry in that case was in the process of being settled. That's paper number 15 on that case that was filed just last week.
Judge, whether the civil case continues or not isn't even necessarily the issue.
Explain why that would not be a problem.
Because she has accused.
I just want to say one thing. I want to point one thing out. People, the way the judge is asking these questions, some people will take it as, oh, the judge is grumpy or he doesn't like Mark Betterow. No, the judge is asking questions. This is what I mean by like intimidated and stuff. People, especially, that's why I love legal debate, and that's why I like debate in general and this sort of thing. The judge is not shouting. He's not calling Mark Bredero names. He's not, I don't think he's being patronizing or demeaning. He's being direct, forthright, and asking legitimate questions. And Mark Bredero, in turn, is responding. And what's awesome about it is Mark Bredero clearly can hold his own in anywhere. Okay. He has no issue responding to any question the judge says. And in return, Mark Bredero isn't yelling, screaming, being in it, doing any of these things. This is what real debate is, right? Real debate isn't people online talking about how ugly someone is or how fat they are, or how they're poor or they have a junky car. That's not debate, okay? That's like the basest level, all right? That's like so base level. That's like the lowest chakra level, the low vibration. If you want to stay in a low vibration world, that's how you operate. You're not going to raise your vibration but by dealing in those things. It's all ego driven. So I try to stay away from that stuff.
Accused him, a lawyer, a former judge, of unethical behavior, and he has a personal interest, understandably so, in defending himself against that. And in any matter in which her credibility becomes an issue as she testifies in a trial, he has an interest in discrediting her, which may be very different from the Commonwealth's interest, which I'll get into as to why that may be. But the point is, calling her an alleged victim and that there is a conflict because of her allegations against me, merely being a witness in a case in which she may testify, as the difference which somehow makes his personal interest.
You're not a horse, and a bland bucket of rice isn't dinner.
Oh
it's
my gosh.
disappointment.
Hey guys.
Here we go again, another day, another can.
Acting both as a criminal prosecutor while serving as a civil defendant and potentially cross-examining your civil accuser and your lead detective is a civil co-defendant who has also been accused of misconduct, undermines the public confidence in the proceedings and demonstrates that a prosecutor could have a personal interest. The bottom line, Your Honor, the difference between witness and alleged victim is a distinction without a difference if the prosecutor has a personal interest which could significantly impact his representation of a party in the case. That's the Rule 1.7 issue. Now, Mr. Cosgrove has replied that, well, we're not going to call Ms. Gaetani as a witness, and that certainly is right for the time being anyway, as the prosecutor for the Commonwealth. But the defense may very well call her. Her credibility will be an issue, obviously, if she testifies in this case. At that point, having a prosecutor who has been accused of misconduct, who is named as a civil defendant, attacking her credibility and attempting to defend the credibility of other witnesses whose credibility could be impeached by Ms. Gaetani is a problem. It's a problem because the jury would have a right to know what the prosecutor's interest may be. It's not...
Well, you chose not to cross-examine her.
That's a decision that has to be made by a disinterested prosecutor.
What if you got someone else to cross-examine her?
That may or may not solve the problem. Certainly it would with the direct examination of her.
But he's not going to call her. He's made that clear.
I understand that. What I'm suggesting to the court is we may very well do that.
You may, and you'd have to get permission from the court to do that because you'd have to show me that it's relevant, but that's another issue down the road.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, respectfully, why it may be relevant beyond just the substance of her testimony. Mr. Cosgrove addressed the substance of her testimony as it relates to the allegations against Mr. Kearney. She also may very well be a witness who can expose bias of other important prosecution witnesses, who could expose conduct on behalf of some of those important prosecution witnesses, conduct which is not at all consistent.
Well, let's get to the nub of it, all right? Because I've read all your materials, so you don't need to repeat the argument to me. Look, as I understand the issue here, Ms. Gaetani, that's the correct...
I got to just say, I appreciate this judge. He's like, let's just get to the point. Like, okay, no more banter. And I appreciate that. I don't think it's rude. I think he likes debating, and I think he knows that Mark Betterow is sharp as hell.
Is it not? Ms. Gaetani has an interaction with Special Prosecutor Mello in December, I think the 24th, was it, or the 23rd?
Something like that.
Of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
It's around that time that she's alleged to have some interaction with Ms. McCabe. Is that correct?
Amongst other times, yes.
Well, around that time is my understanding, based on the evidence you presented me. Around that time, Ms. McCabe urges her to go to the grand jury. Do the right thing, go to the grand jury, something along those lines. All right, is that correct?
In substance, but I think it's interpretational, and the witness might expand upon that.
I understand that. All of those events occurred 6 months after the events that are in play here. So the relevance of those events is only as to the credibility, potentially, of Ms. McCabe. Now, you might be able to get into that. You might be able to even confront Ms. McCabe. But then you're going to have to raise an issue of whether or not you get into a trial within a trial, so to speak, the extrinsic evidence rule, which takes us to whether or not she is even going to be a witness to talk about potential bias after the fact. This is after the fact bias.
Yeah.
On an issue which, frankly, I'm struggling with a little bit, because nobody contests the acts here. All right? Mr. Kearney is a citizen journalist, sort of a new breed of journalist, correct? He presents to this court that all of his activities are fully protected under the First Amendment. A very reasonable argument, okay? Mr. Cosgrove says different. He says this is witness intimidation. The motivation of Ms. McCabe to his acts is tangential by and large, is it not?
Judge,
now she's going to testify, yes, I was intimidated. But the main factor here is the nature of the comment, which is recorded, made voluntarily and recorded. Now, you are correct. There's an excellent argument to be made, perhaps, that Gaetani and Genduso and McCabe may have all had some idea that they were going to get together and get his bail revoked. But that's not what this trial's about. This trial's about what happened 6 months before. So you got to draw me to the relevance of that.
Well, her bias and motive against him, whether before, during,
Sorry about that. What the judge just went through was a lot there. I just wanted to pause that. I mean, he just said a whole heck of a lot, all right? And I just wanted to bring in some of the key points that I got from that. So far, Betterow is basically arguing why this guy should be recused, okay? And, excuse me just for 1 second. Hold on. So, excuse me. So, he's saying he should be recused because he has an actual conflict of interest. And the judge is really just hanging back on the fact that, okay, fine, but you didn't ask the right way. Okay. So in case you're not too familiar with this case, because it does get pretty confusing. Why does Betterow Betterow or Turtleboy's defense team want Cosgrove, who is a former judge, come out of retirement, hired to be a special prosecutor to prosecute this case? Why do they want him recused? What is the problem, right? We're going to talk about it. But just let the other part sink in too, what I just said. In order to prosecute Aidan Kearney, aka Turtleboy, they don't have just a regular prosecutor. It's not just the regular prosecutor, okay? I don't know how many, but apparently so many declined to take this case that they had to hire a special prosecutor who used to be a judge to come out of retirement. Okay? So what does that tell you? I mean, what does that tell you? It tells me that Cosgrove probably needs some money. That's about all it tells me. Because all those other prosecutors did not want any part of this because they know it's bad karma. It's just bad karma, bad karma. Cosgrove decided he was going to do it. I guess he really needed the money. That's the only thing I can think of. Maybe I'm wrong. This is all speculation, as you can see. So the reason why they think that Cosgrove should be recused is because the reason that Turtleboy ended up in prison for those, was it 30 days, 60 days? I should know this as a turtle rider. I recently, found him with this case, but I think it was 60 days. I feel like it was long, 30 or 60. And they tried to do 30 more, whatever it was. But regardless, he didn't end up in prison for that time because he was intimidating a witness. He ended up in prison that time because his bail was revoked because he was charged with witness intimidation. So we'll talk about his charges and we'll talk about those things if people are interested in it. I'm happy to talk about it. I've been following this case for a while, and I've dropped videos along the way. I've gone up there several times. Both times were really to see Aidan's case, but the one time it was good because Karen was also, it was like a 2-for-1, so it was cool. But I've always been more interested in his case, honestly, because of the freedom of speech. And he's just such a great, he's a gem, honestly. Aidan Kearney is a gem. He's a human being with flaws like all of us, okay? Some of his karma, I believe some of the reason why this stuff comes back on him is because maybe sometimes he lets his ego get the best of him, and he gets to, like, I don't know what the word is. He just gets, he like needs to stop, right? But the reality is it's always just enough. I've never seen him go overboard. He's not an intimidating person. Like if you see him, you're not, I met him, he smiled. Like I have a picture of him directly looking at me smiling. Like he's just a really good guy, genuinely. But he gets pissed off. What he has is passion. He's incredibly passionate. He reminds me of like Mel Gibson in Braveheart. Like Turtleboy would be that if he was in Ireland or whatever. That was Ireland, right? I mean, that's Turtleboy, to me. He's legit like Mel Gibson in Braveheart. Like this mofo has passion for days, okay? Which is, by the way, very attractive to women. So women fall all over him. On top of which, he's a good looking guy. But regardless, I got sidetracked again. Sorry. Regardless, back to what happened, guys. Sorry. Let me bring it back to what happened. He was arrested for witness intimidation. We'll get into that on another live. I have talked about it. There are videos. You can even go follow Aidan Kearney. If you're not following Turtleboy, you definitely should. And he has condensed it in very entertaining ways. If you don't know what happened to lead to the charge. But while he was out on bail of his own recognizance, because it was bullshit charges, let's be honest, a woman who reached out to him, in a proposition type way, which he probably had many, okay? He ended up, fooling around with. Okay, that's what I mean by he's human. All right, but I guess at some point it had to end with her, and she again, "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned," was sucked in. I believe she was in a this is my take on her. This is my psychic, okay, or my perception of what's going on with her. Okay, my perception is this. First of all, I don't think she's a bad person. I really don't. I think she did a bad thing, but we've all done that. She's human. But anyway, I think what happened is she was with him. She really liked him. She has some toxic relationship shit she needs to work out clearly because she's done this to other guys, got them put in prison. Okay. Again, not a bad person. Needs to work some stuff out. I think she will. But regardless, she decides in this vulnerable position where she's like really upset, and she probably definitely has the gene for revenge. There's a gene for that, by the way. It's a genetic predisposition to be vengeful. I actually don't have it. It doesn't surprise me. Regardless, I think she does, and I think a lot of women tend to. And she was pissed, and the other side were like, ooh, we see a mark over there. Ooh, look at her. She's very vulnerable. She just had her heart broken by the turtle. Let's take her under our wing and see what we can get. That's how you know those people in Canton are psychos, okay? This is how you know that somebody in Canton, in that circle, and I'm not going to name anybody because my psychic cat isn't giving me a specific person, but that's how you know they're covering shit up, and there's some sociopathy in that group because they saw a fledgling bird, a wounded bird, and they said, oh, look, there's a mark. She can help us fuck up Turtleboy. And however they got in and approached her, brought her in with the help of a police and the prosecutor at that time, the first special prosecutor they hired, Mello. That guy was like on an oxygen tank. He looked like he might have had Addison's disease. I mean, his skin was getting darker every time I saw him. That guy was a mess. I think he might have congestive heart failure. I mean, this guy, I'm just saying, this isn't against him. I didn't look at his records. I'm just telling you, taking a look at that guy, it's not doing well. But man, he was showing up there like, yes, Your Honor, yes, Your Honor. Yeah, I was in the hospital, so I didn't respond. That also would not give up the money. 1 second. Go on, guys. Go. I don't know how much money they're paying these special prosecutors, but he was not going to give that money up. He needed it. It makes you wonder, why are they asking these people? I'd really like to know Mello's record and Cosgrove's record, and have they claimed bankruptcy? It's something of interest, right? If you think about it. Anyway, they saw a mark, and her name was Lindsay Gaetani, the woman that Turtleboy was fooling around with while he was still married. And the side chick, in that sense, unfortunately, it just never works out. Even if he gets a divorce, it's too fucked up because you're cheating with him. And he might be focused on you because you're the side chick, but he's cheating. So like, it never works out. The trust is just never going to be there. That's the one thing women should understand. If their man does cheat on them and ends up with that woman, their relationship is going to be toxic and fucked up. So who cares? Anyway, point I'm trying to make is they saw a mark in Lindsay, not because she's stupid. I don't believe that for a second, but because she was traumatized. She felt upset. She was upset about Turtleboy not being with her anymore. Whatever it was, okay? We've all been there. Vulnerable, and people take advantage. That's what they did. And, she was interested in getting some revenge of her own. And so what did she do? Well, she told him she had some information and he should come over to her apartment, even though he had broken up with her and didn't want anything to do with her again or anything like that. He's a guy. She was crying. This is what I mean. Turtleboy is like a nice guy. You know how many men I've met that if I've cried, this is what men have done to me when I've cried. Dead serious. And ladies in the chat, let me know if this is true or not. When I've cried, I've had men look at me and say, don't use your tears like that. Those are weapons. Don't be so dramatic. I've never had a man be like, you know who does that? The only man who's ever done that? Actually, men. My father and my 2 brothers. They'll give me a hug and reassurance and stuff. But like any other man, unfortunately, haven't met one that when I was crying was like, boo-boo, what's wrong? Come here, boo-boo. No. These mofos look at me like, bitch, stop. Seriously. I told you I had a bad picker for a really long time. But anyway, moving past that. Lindsay Gaetani had a bad picker too, okay? And so did Turtleboy. All right? It happens. You got to work out your childhood trauma to get over it. It's really what it is. And it's not hard. Just got to face it. Anyway, the point is, Lindsay Gaetani then accuses Turtleboy of assaulting her, domestic violence. That's really bad, okay? Not only because it sounds like really bad, it can carry jail time now because he's already out on bail. But it's also just really bad because, like, you're a domestic abuser? What? You're a father. You have a daughter. You have a little son. Like, what? No, that's not Turtleboy. And they really fucked him up with that arrest, too, let me tell you. I mean, I remember this. I remember that moment so vividly, how it happened, because I had been following Turtleboy, all of it. And I remember so vividly when basically there's this video that was put out, and you can hear in the background like some disagreement or arguing, and him saying, you know, I didn't hit, like he's saying something like, I didn't hit you. I'm not touching you. That's not true. Get your hands off of me. Like he's saying things like that, right? Because he's videotaping it. And he was doing it for his own protection because he suddenly realized he had fallen into a trap laid by his ex, Guma. Sorry, I got Italian in me. Plus, I love The Sopranos, so sorry. A trap laid by his former Guma and the police. Tully and the special prosecutor, Mello. Okay? He got fucked. This is why they're making a movie, by the way, about Turtleboy. I mean, I can already picture this. Like it's such a diabolical thing that they did to Turtleboy, and it makes for such great movie content. Like, I can't wait to see the dramatized version of Turtleboy. I really can't. And that's why this shit needs to go to trial, okay? Because it's going to be amazing. This trial is going to be the trial of like a century, in my opinion. It's going to be bigger than Karen Reed. Don't you remember when Vegas went after, who was it? The guy who owned Hustler. What was that guy's name? The guy who owned Hustler? Yeah. Everybody remembers it. I can't remember the guy's name, okay? But it was a big case, all right? I've always believed this case was going to be a big case. I just didn't think it was going to take this damn long. For a little while, though, I thought maybe it would be dismissed. I've lost all hope on that. I no longer believe it will be recused I no longer believe it'll be dismissed. I really don't. But it doesn't matter. It's like Turtleboy said, nobody will ever convict him. It just won't happen. Anyway, guys, it's better for the movie ending. We all know, like the building up of it, you know, where it starts where they're like, basically he goes over to see his former Guma, and she starts making all these claims. She's talking to the special prosecutor, Mello, on the phone, and being directed by Tully what to do, how to entrap Aidan Kearney. And when she was interviewed, was coaxed into saying certain things so that they could then arrest him. I think it was Christmas Day or before Christmas, and put his ass in jail. And that's why he does Bus Stop Lives every morning, because that's how he got arrested. They were staking him out. This movie, I swear to God, if someone does the dramatization of Turtleboy movie, it's got to be done in like a please do some like dry humor in it or something, because the fact that these cops staked out Turtleboy as if he was some dangerous criminal mastermind, like he was Jason Bourne or something. Do it. Yeah, the kids are on the bus. Yeah. Yeah, let's pull up. I'm pulling up. What? What? I mean, wow, guys. Really? Really? That was hilarious if it wasn't so heartbreaking for him, the time he missed. But the way that they did that, if you never saw that, you should watch it because it's ridiculous, okay? I don't like there's so many ways they could have gotten Turtle. They could have called his attorney. He would have turned himself in. Like they could have done that. No, these guys wanted to do like a full on operation get the turtle. I bet you they had a name for it. If there's any form of military, they definitely had a name for that. I guarantee it. His kids saw him as they were riding away on the bus. That's what these little dicks did in Canton. These police. They wanted his kids to worry. They said they wanted to wait till the kids got on the bus, but they didn't really give a fuck enough to wait till the bus left. So now you got these little kids worrying all day. That's the kind of karma you really don't want to bring on yourself, in my opinion. So they did it, though. They did it, Aidan Kearney. And then he went into jail, and he couldn't even say anything. But you know what? When he got to prison, and he was put up for arraignment or whatever they call it before he went in, into prison or jail. Jail, actually, I think would be considered because he's not convicted yet. There were a ton of people there, like the O'Keefe family. I think he said Peggy O'Keefe was there, and like the McCabe's, and like all of his haters were there. Isn't that interesting? They all knew about it, but it was really hard for him to get the word out to the turtle riders. See, that's why they did it that way. They wanted to scare the piss out of him. They wanted him to feel so alone. That's traumatic. Especially when you consider he didn't do anything against the law. He didn't do one damn thing against the law, ever. But they just hate him so much because he's telling them, you're corrupt. And here's how I know you're corrupt. And we're in America, so they can't make him shut up. People tried. They tried to get restraining orders on him. They tried to make him stop blogging, Jim McCabe, make him stop blogging about me. They tried that route. It didn't work. They probably, initially, that Canton crowd probably called some, who knows, relative who's in the government, state rep or senator, in the police force. I don't know who they know high up, but they called somebody. Brian Albert's pretty high up, and people seem to be pretty damn intimidated by him. So whoever they did, how do we make him stop talking about us? Because they used to love Turtleboy when he talked that shit about other people. But now he's talking about them. How do we make him stop? And they must have been told, oh, that's easy. Just get an RO or whatever they call it in Massachusetts. Make him stop. He's bullying me. Problem is, it's called the First Amendment. Boo-boo, First Amendment. So he can do that. Why are you watching? Like if someone's sitting there shitting on you 24/7, why are you watching? If the tree falls in the woods and you didn't hear it or see it, did it fall? I mean, seriously, I'm not saying that they might not have felt some heat from it, because Turtleboy just woke people up to the truth, what was going on. But they couldn't get it that way. So the next step was, we want him to stop. You have to have him stop. These are things that have been found out in texts and stuff now. Why won't he stop? You have to make him stop. Next thing we know, he gets arrested. And he keeps doing it. Now, he's not contacting them because he's been told he can't, but he's still talking. He's still free. He's still being Turtleboy. He's still being awesome. And they're just stewing in it. Pissed off. They want blood. He has to go to prison. And then they see that mark, and this is back to the point of the whole story. Lindsay Gaetani, vulnerable woman with a little spite in her heart, and they scoop her right up. And then she accuses him of things that he didn't do, and he's in prison, all alone, jail, all alone. And then I remember hearing the video was played. I think it was the Glare. Maybe it was the Glare or Brian from LTL. No, I think it was the Glare that was the first person to put it out. And I've been following the Glare even before Turtleboy. I followed the Glare. Like I was following him with some other drama he had gotten into and out of and whatever. I didn't follow him constantly, but I was following him. And then when I was following Turtleboy, I noticed he started investigating it and he blew up. I mean, he so blew up on the Turtleboy thing. It's awesome. Like so awesome. Anyway, the Glare helped him out when he was in prison. And at that time, Brian LTL, the guy who is now another Judas to him, helped him out, you know? So he was, I think, hosting a show or putting out his words every day or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but that was a real lifeline to Aidan Kearney when he was in prison, right? Or jail. I keep saying prison, sorry, when he was in jail. I remember those two specifically. I also remember at that time, Mike Crawford kind of backing away. Like he was super nervous that he was going to get arrested or something like that. And I was just like, this guy's a loser. Like, why is he doing this? He's behaving like a loser. I'm sorry. He's not a loser. I don't want to say that. He's behaving as if he's a loser. He thinks he's going to get arrested. Like, it's not even close, right? So he just like backed out. While Turtleboy is in jail, like that's the worst time. Like that's so fucked up. Okay. I've been following this long enough to remember when Kevin Linehan was actually like talking to Turtleboy and thought Turtleboy was right. Like that's how long I've been following this, you know? Now he's a hater too. But regardless, Lindsay Gaetani betrayed him. And in a really big way. And that's how he ended up in prison. And so over time, Lindsay Gaetani realized that she didn't like that what she said was misinterpreted. She didn't like that they coaxed her to do certain things. She started to sort of wake up to the fact that, hey, maybe I've been a little manipulated. I'm sorry. Maybe I've been marked by these sociopaths of Canton, and I don't like it. And I think I'm pissed now. That's what I think happened to Lindsay Gaetani. I don't think it had anything to do with, I want to be with Turtleboy again. Hold on for 1 minute. You guys okay? Making sure they're all right because it's so cold out there playing around. But anyway, I think Lindsay Gaetani just had enough of some of the McAlbert shit and some of those ladies in Canton shit. Because, I think that they were probably super friendly to her in the beginning. Again, they saw her as a mark, brought her into the fold, and maybe she was just kind of enamored by it. These are different type of people that I hang out with. Their houses are big. They drive fancy, whatever it is. Okay. And by the way, Lindsay Gaetani could make that money if she wanted to. She's a nurse. That's how you know she's smart. She's not dumb. Plus, she's street smart. So they got her when she was in a vulnerable spot and she's a spiteful woman and she did some things and then she regretted it and was like, oh, hell no. And so she decided she was going to change her mind. She decided she was going to tell the truth instead of lie. Because in the beginning, she was a turtle rider, loved him. He dumped her because of the ex-wife. He was still married. She's a guma. What do you want? You knew he was married, right? She's pissed. The Canton see you next Tuesdays. There's the mark. Bring her in. She wants to be spiteful at that time. Kind of goes along with it, but doesn't quite agree to that far. But it's a cop. It's a special prosecutor. Mellow. Okay? And then, because she's smart and because she doesn't like to be fucking manipulated, And she suddenly realized, oh, this isn't right. I have to make this right. I'm not going to let those bitches think they got over on me. I have to tell the truth. And that takes courage, honestly. So I give her a lot of credit for that. Some people are mad at Turtleboy because he's talked to, I don't know if he talks to her or he's been a little softer towards her about how he talks about her now. I think, what do you expect him to, you want him to talk shit about her? Are you stupid? Like, I don't understand. First of all, I don't think he should, because I think as humans, we're all flawed, and he's done some messed up stuff, I'm sure. So, like, I mean, we've seen Turtleboy at its worst, okay? And and I still love him. So good luck trying to make people hate Turtleboy. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, when Lindsay Gattani did this heel turn, she gave Turtleboy's defense team some information and evidence that is really going to help their team when they talk about the recusal. Mostly, they probably put a lot of it in the recusal already. It doesn't really, I mean, there's a lot of things you find out, like, you know, Jen McCabe was asking Lindsay to come with her, and they were wearing disguises and following Turtleboy. Right? That's weird. Okay? That's really weird. And this is after Turtleboy was arrested for intimidating her. It's a felony charge because she's a, quote, witness in the Kearney trial. And if I tell you what he did, you're going to laugh because it's ridiculous. It's the kind of embarrassment you may have felt a couple times in your life, most likely when you were young, like in high school or something, when you gave a fuck about what people thought of you. But as an adult, you just don't really pay much mind unless people are saying things that are true that could cause a big legal problem for you. Then you want them to shut the fuck up. That's what happened with Turtleboy case, right? Anyway, when Lindsay Gattani gave this information to the Turtleboy defense team, which we've seen some of it, we've heard some of it. I'm not going to go into all the details. Turtleboy is on X. You should follow him there. He has a channel. He has a turtle. I read all of it. I do all of it. But not to get too far in the weeds, the other thing Lindsay Gattani did, which I believe was awesome, is she filed a lawsuit against Tully, the state trooper, and Cosgrove, special prosecutor Cosgrove, and I also believe probably Mello as well. And that's what this recusal is about, okay? That's the whole reason why it's being brought up. Mark Betterow is saying, look, one of the witnesses in this case, someone that's going to come in to authenticate certain evidence, someone that, you know, she sued the prosecutor, Robert Cosgrove, who is a former judge, by the way. And we all know, like, wait a second, I thought you couldn't sue judges or whatever, right? Well, apparently in Massachusetts, you can sue them. Okay? She sued and is suing, I should say, Tully, Cosgrove, Mello, I believe. I believe those are the three. There may be more. I could be wrong on Tully. Regardless, that's weird, I think. I think it's awesome. I'd like to know who her attorney is. Is it Grant Smith? Is it him? I don't know. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is Lindsay is suing the prosecutor that is prosecuting Turtleboy's case. And she is intricately involved in this case. not with the original charges, the witness intimidation, but with the jail, when he got jailed, because she's the one that put him there. With the help of others, okay? Like it wasn't solely her, but she cooperated with them. They directed her what to do. Now that case has been completely dismissed because, like I said, Lindsay Gaetani said, I was told to say these things. I didn't really, he wrote down something different than what I said. And she eventually felt guilty enough to come forward and also to tell those Canton CUNTs to go F themselves. I wonder if she did do that. I'd like to have seen that if she did. That would be fun. Regardless. I mean, that's why they went the recusal. It makes sense, right? And Cosgrove, like, automatically withdrew from some other case because of it. So the judge says, well, hey, wait a minute. That case was resolved already. They resolved it, so what's the problem now? And Better was like, wait a second. Yeah, they resolved it. Fine. I'm not aware of that. It's irrelevant to my arguments in that he was accused. He is a former judge, now assigned special prosecutor. He's not a private person. This is a public person, right? Judges typically like to have intact characters, with their public facing image, right? Judges really don't want to be, in fact, it's rare you're going to see a judge being talked badly about. And when a judge does get arrested or talked about, man, they must have really fucked up. I'm going to tell you right now, because it's hard. Judges are like kings, honestly. Prove me wrong. Judges are like freaking kings and queens. Watch the trial of Karen Reed and you will see. They can do whatever they want. They're not held accountable at all in places like Massachusetts because they're appointed and not elected. That's really scary, Massachusetts. That's how Connecticut was too, and I hated it. Anyway, it's a big problem. I can't even believe it's not unconstitutional, honestly, but we can't solve that issue right now, okay? I got to stay focused, guys. Sorry. Anyway, back to the story. So what I'm trying to say is she's suing this guy. And so Better was like, whether or not it's settled, Judge, she made these allegations. She tarnished his reputation. And, people are going to hear about this. Whenever you look up Robert Cosgrove in the future, this shit is going to come up for the rest of his life. Now, maybe she signed an NDA or whatever, where she can't talk about some settlement that they came to. That seems likely, considering we haven't heard anything. But it doesn't mean that his name wasn't tarnished. And Cosgrove just doesn't care. We're supposed to believe that Cosgrove has no feelings whatsoever about that. That he's just like, yeah, I know she totally tarnished my name and stuff, and I settled with her out of court or whatever. I'm assuming that's what happened. But I can totally be objective when deciding whether or not I should bring her in as a witness for this case, when I'm questioning her. Actually, no, I'm not going to bring her in, Cosgrove says. And then Better says, but we may bring her in. And then the judge says, well, we could have someone else cross-examine her, not this Cosgrove. Failed logic again, Judge. Even if someone steps in for Cosgrove, ultimately Cosgrove is part of a legal team, and that person and he have a conflict that cannot be ignored. In my opinion, I'm not a judge or a lawyer, whatever, right? So that's the whole argument. And Better was like, no, no, Judge. The problem is in closing arguments. Lindsay Gaetani's going to be, and then Cosgrove tries to say, oh, we're not going to relitigate the Karen Reed trial. Was it Cosgrove? Yes, you are. That's what you're doing. You're absolutely going to. You're going to have to. That's how you got here. Wow, the sky is so pretty out there. I can't, it's like orange, guys. Crazy. All right, anyway. So, yeah, that's why they want to recuse Lindsay Gaetani, okay? And it makes sense to me. And the judge is, you know, just firing back a lot of shots. But let's listen some more and see.
Or after, I would suggest, is certainly relevant. Moreover, it's
all after. There's no before.
Judge, you mentioned a moment ago about the fact that she's going to come in and say, I felt intimidated or I was emotionally harmed. I think we would all agree that would be relevant about what the impact that these horrible allegations had on her. There will be evidence.
The first ingredient in Dove whole body deodorant is alcohol.
Alcohol is the #1 ingredient in Dove whole body deodorant. And on the instructions, it says, avoid intimate area. Avoid the intimate area. Avoid the intimate area.
Through electronic communications between Gaetani and McCabe, which Gaetani may very well have to authenticate as a witness, because frankly, we don't assume or take any guess what Ms. McCabe will say, where shortly after Mr. Kearney was released from jail, from what Your Honor just spoke about, where Ms. McCabe recruited Ms. Gaetani and orchestrated surveilling him from various police stations and to other locations, joking about going on a stakeout. In other words, conduct not consistent with her being intimidated. Those actions will also
the intimidation doesn't have to last forever. Intimidation, we're only trying one slice in time. That's the bedrock of any criminal defendant, right? But not trying his entire life, we're trying that moment.
But these are questions that have to be posed to Ms. McCabe, and she'll have and should be forced to answer them and explain them.
I don't necessarily disagree with that.
Okay, so the point is, we don't know what Ms. McCabe will say. We know based upon messages that we've seen, which would need to be authenticated, presumably what Ms. Gaetani will say about these issues.
Which seems to move with time from poll to poll, correct?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, it seems like her allegiances have changed as this case has developed.
Judge, have you been watching Turtleboy?
She is, without question, a unique witness, which raises another interesting point, which could lead to the possible conflict with Mr. Cosgrove. She is a former prosecution witness. There's no question. She testified in grand jury. She testified at a trial called and vouched for by Mr. Cosgrove.
Quite enthusiastically, as I understand.
I believe so, Judge. No question. And at that point, they had no problem with Ms. Gaetani. But at this point, she's now sued Mr. Cosgrove. She has sued Tully. She has threatened to sue or sent a demand letter to the DA's office. And when that happened, Mr. Cosgrove said, I have a conflict with her because he has a personal interest in seeing her discredited. And I'm going back to what I first started with, Your Honor. The issue is not because she's an alleged victim. She's a potential witness in this case, and the prosecutor has a personal interest in seeing her discredited. And the critical part comes in the argument to the jury at the end of the trial. When McCabe has testified, it's in Mr. Cosgrove's personal interest that she be credited, Gaetani not be credited. When Tully testifies, it's the same exercise. He's a co-defendant of his.
What's Tully going to testify to?
Is Tully going to testify? We're not calling Tully.
Mr. Cosgrove, what's Tully going to testify to? Is he even a witness?
I haven't made a determination as to whether I'm going to call Lieutenant Tully or whether I'll need to call Lieutenant Tully. It seems to me that the videos, which Mr. Kearney has himself made public, documenting his statements and actions, are pretty much self-authenticating. I'm not sure.
Well, I think you may have to make a choice here fairly quick if we're going to deal with this issue. But continue.
Look, the bottom line is Detective Lieutenant Tully is the lead investigator on this matter. Now, that doesn't obligate the Commonwealth to call him.
Another replay. Okay, let's just take a second. I just have to stop for 1 second, guys. You know, if you watch the Kearney trial, what did they do? Well, we don't need to call Michael Proctor. The prosecution, Hank Brennan, another special prosecutor, by the way, because Lally was the first one, and I think honestly, Lally did a better job. Regardless, he did the same thing. He did not call the lead investigator of the Kearney trial, and here they're saying again, we're not calling Tully. Why would we call Tully? Stop it. Seriously, stop it. That's so obnoxious. The gaslight level is 10x with that shit. We're not calling. Why would we call Tully? I don't understand. That's weird. Wow. Who called the lead investigator of the crime to court? Who does that? That's weird. Go fuck yourself, right? I can't stand that stuff. Sorry. I just had to pause on that to just reflect how things operate in Massachusetts. And you know what? They probably operate differently in every state, but they're still fucked up like this. I don't think it's specific to Massachusetts. This is just caught all of our attention, right?
But he is the driving force behind this. He built the investigation. He got the search warrant.
This is not your classic whodunit.
No.
This is not the investigation where they find evidence on a scene. They develop the evidence on the scene. They trace.
Whoa. Okay. Let's take a breath here. Judge, I like you, Judge. I do. I know it doesn't matter at all, and you don't care, but I do. I like you. I like your forthrightness. I like your questions. I like all those things. But right now, you sound a teensy bit triggered to me. Because when you say something hyperbolic like, this isn't a whodunit, blah, 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 Judge, nobody's saying this is a whodunit because nobody died. I know what he's going to say next, though. It's just a simple case. It's simple. We know, we have, this judge is a trick.
The suspects, they get phone downloads. They do this, that, the other. This is a very unique set of facts. Where the defendant recorded himself and then voluntarily broadcast his actions to the world at large. So the investigation essentially is press record, and then a jury of his peers, all right, would judge the mores of our society to determine whether or not this is acceptable First Amendment or not acceptable First Amendment.
The point I'm making, Your Honor, is
this is why I shouldn't talk shit, guys. Because I have to immediately eat crow. Because actually, again, I agree with this judge. He wasn't being hyperbolic. He made a perfectly good argument right there. That totally made sense. Like, this case is not really that complicated. We can just show you what he did. And then the jury can decide, is this what we consider okay for journalism? Is this something we should tell someone they should go to jail for? Are you allowed to treat people? That's it, right? And there's no way anybody is going to convict that, but that would still be an amazing trial. I'm just saying, especially for the movie. I'm just saying. And maybe that judge is an Edo. He wants to be on the camera. He does have a little spicy personality there. Okay. So these are things I'm thinking about. But he's right, though. There is no whodunit. We know, like, what he did these things. He admits he does this. He did the things, and he's saying it's free speech, right?
And I would like the jury of peers to make that decision. I don't want to make it. I want the jury of his peers to make that decision.
The judge just told on himself. The judge just told on himself. Did you hear that? Now we know. This judge does not want to dismiss this case. I think, did they already ask for dismissal and he hasn't responded to that yet? Maybe it was an affidavit and not a motion. Again, I don't know. Regardless, the judge just said, I don't want to decide it. I want a jury of his peers to decide it. There's a lot of reasons why that's interesting. One, the most namely is that now we know what this judge wants. He wants a trial. But two, it is possible that you could ask for a no jury trial, just a judge. I think that's an option. I'm curious if anybody knows. You can put in the comments, lawyers or people who think they're lawyers or whatever. If Turtleboy wanted, could he elect to have a judge trial? Or the judge could say, no, I don't want to do it. Because he just said, no, he doesn't want to do it. It's nothing relevant to his case other than an interesting side note is all.
Point I'm making, Your Honor, is on this issue is that Tully is the lead investigator. And certainly I can only speak from my own experience, perhaps others, that it would be extraordinarily rare not to call.
I don't find that to be accurate in my experience. I've seen it happen a number of times, much to my disappointment when I sat over there. Okay.
I've seen it happen, and I've taken that from the other side of the table in prosecuting rather than defending, in letting juries know who built the case, what is going on here. But the point,
and fairly pointed out by the defense, and you didn't hear from him.
Switch to TurboTax.
it could be. It may very well be, but that could also lead to the reason why. Okay, the issues surrounding Gaetani's claims. The defense wants to argue they're not calling Tully. Perhaps the jury may be entitled, not asking Your Honor to make evidentiary rulings now, obviously, but the jury may want to know and be entitled to know why isn't the prosecutor calling him, and might it have something to do with what Gaetani alleges. But moving away from Tully to the larger point, it's not even so much the cross-examinations, or other evidence, which I would suggest are improper being conducted by a prosecutor with a personal interest in favoring certain witnesses over the one that is suing him. It's the summations, it's the argument. Mr. Cosgrove has an opportunity to cross-examine Ms. Gaetani, assuming he does, as Your Honor noted. Maybe he won't, but I would suggest, again, that's a decision to be made by a disinterested prosecutor, not one with a personal interest.
Well, let's define the personal.
You see how sharp Mark Betterow is? Mark Betterow is one sharp mofo, okay? I mean, he's the shit, okay? He really is the shit, all right? And I'm just so happy that he's on this case. And it's just unbelievable. I'm going to the next hearing. I wasn't able to make this last one, but I'm going. I got to see this in action in real time.
Interest. It is, anybody can bring a lawsuit against anybody, all right? You know, the actions that are alleged here by Mr. Cosgrove, and most of them appear, frankly, seem to have occurred prior to his arrival in the case. But the actions are alleged were done solely in his role as a special prosecutor. You know, his immunity is almost impenetrable, correct?
In a legal sense.
Sir, this is a legal setting.
No, Your Honor, my point is this. Personal interests don't rise and fall. They're not black and white because you've been sued or not sued. She has publicly and loudly accused a distinguished prosecutor of misconduct that he himself recognized after the lawsuit was filed. This lawsuit that we're saying has no merit. What did he do? He sought removal because I'm ethically precluded from cross-examining her. It's the same issue.
Well, I'm not sure.
You're gonna get a hell yeah.
That's what he said. But
that was so good.
I'll take that for what it is.
Well, Judge, I just want the record to be clear. What he said.
The judge is like, that's all I could say to that, because that shit was fire.
Said was counsel states that a recent conflict of interest has developed, which ethically precludes him from continuing to prosecute matters when Gaetani is an alleged victim or party. And we talked about whether we...
Detective Alex Cross. Are you familiar with Lance Duran?
This killer doesn't make mistakes.
What happens next is up to you.
This looks good. This looks good. I'm going to skip it for now, though.
He
Sorry.
was alleged victim or witness as the issue. The point is...
Well, that's why I said that's not exactly what he said. What he said was...
Yes. No, I'm not trying to substitute that. We're having, trying to, in my view, suggest it's a distinction without a difference, because he has been attacked. And when he withdrew from the other case, the lawsuit against him was no better or no worse than it is now. So he didn't make that argument back then to say, this is some garbage lawsuit, I have no real conflict. What he said was, I am ethically precluded.
All right, I take your point. Mr. Cosgrove, if you're ethically precluded from one, why aren't you ethically precluded from two?
Okay. The judge was like, oh, shit. That's a good point. Let's say hi to Broken Baker. Okay. I keep trying to say hi to him, and he's ignoring me.
I'll come back to this issue of the 2025 investigation, too.
I reserve my answer on that.
What? He reserves his response or something? What? Look at Broken Baker's face. No, I'm not live with him. I'd love to go live with him sometime, though. He's hilarious. But seriously, that's my face, too. Cosgrove said, what now? Let's just rewind that for a second. That's just crazy.
Precluded from...
I am ethically precluded.
All right, I take your point. Mr. Cosgrove, if you're ethically precluded from one, why aren't you ethically precluded from two? I'll come back to this issue of the 2025 investigation, too.
Yeah, Cosgrove.
I reserve my answer on that.
Reserve it for when?
When it's my turn to speak.
I'll reserve my answer for that. What? Judge is like, for when? He said, when it's my turn to speak. Mofo, it's your turn to speak right now. You don't need to raise your hand. He's addressing you now. He asked the judge. Attorney Cosgrove, the judge just asked you a direct question, which means he would like you to answer. It's an implied permission for your turn to speak, right? So what is this bullshit you're saying? I'm going to wait to answer when it's my turn to what? Because, dude, you don't have an answer. It's because you don't have a heart for this, okay? You're doing this for money. And you're a little bit of a wise ass, I noticed. In my opinion, okay? All speculation. See the disclaimer. This is just my psychic on Cosgrove, okay? I don't think he's really thrilled that he has to do this, but he's pissed off at the other side enough now, and he's getting paid, and he needs to be paid for whatever reason. And you might think, this is, again, my psychic. Disclaimer, please, don't get an uproar. I have no idea. I don't know this man. I don't know his life story or anything. It's just my feeling watching him operate. Because he doesn't have a response. If you are a person of integrity and someone asks you a question that the judge just asked, former retired judge, now special appointed prosecutor, something about your ethics, I'd be happy to tell people the distinction as to why that wouldn't work in that case, but in this case it would. He should have a very simple, clear answer. It should be an obvious one to him that was so obvious that when he spoke it, we all understood and we're like, okay, fuck, he's got a point. But you know what? He didn't. He didn't have a point. And that's why he said what he said. And I have to replay it again because I really want you to let it sink in. This question, whatever you do for a job, Just imagine whatever it is, whether you're a mother, that's what you do. You keep the house down, you hold down, or you're a teacher, whatever you do, it doesn't matter. You're a father, whatever it is, whatever you do. Imagine being asked this question by a judge. What would you say? Just put it in your mind. Just imagine it. It tells you that this man is operating in the shadows. Listen.
Cosgrove, if you're ethically precluded from one, why aren't you ethically precluded from two? I'll come back to this issue of the 2025 investigation too.
I reserve my answer on that.
Reserve it for when?
When it's my turn to speak.
I was about to give you your turn to speak, but I'll go back to Mr. Betterow. Let's talk about the 2025 investigation.
I'm just saying, in my opinion, I'm not entirely sure. But if I was asked this question, I'd be so excited to give my opinion, and be like, well, here's exactly why, Judge, I was ethically precluded from doing this in that case. And here's the distinction on this case. I'd be dying to tell the judge and everybody else about it. And he just shrinks. No.
Your Honor, can I make one point I didn't get to? We kind of got. It's the summations where the real problem arises here. Because.
Sorry, you're good. Betterow, you're good. I always think of Robert De Niro when he did that. What was that movie he did? And he's like, you're good. Was it Goodfellas? That's like Betterow. Right, Louise? It's not. It's from any angle you look at it, just from a human angle, exactly, Brooke, exactly. I'd be like, yes, there's a very important distinction. Okay? There's a very important distinction. And let me tell you, I couldn't wait to tell you because I don't like my name being spoken in that way, right? But no, this guy shrinks because he's in the shadows here. He's in the shadows, just like Brennan was. We're not dumb, right?
If Gaetani were cross-examined by Mr. Cosgrove, in essence, it is almost a free deposition. It is sworn testimony of her by a litigant against another litigant in a civil matter in which he has the full power of the government cross-examining, which will benefit his personal interest. Then you go to summation. Presumably, his argument will be Gaetani is not believable, Gaetani is not credible, but McCabe is. Now, those are appropriate arguments by most people to make, not him, because it is in his personal interest, not just as a representative of the Commonwealth. It is in his personal interest that she be discredited.
So it's such a great, it's true, right? It's the exact argument that you expect the prosecutor to make because of who Lindsay Gaetani is, right? She's supporting the defense side. The one he should be making, you're not going to be able to distinguish because he has it out for her to discredit her in other ways. And so even though that may be the logical argument, he still has it out for her.
And the jury should know that. Now, I'm not saying that's an appropriate outcome either. The appropriate outcome is that he be removed, because if he's vouching for the credibility, not in an illegal sense, but advocating for the jury to adopt Jen McCabe and discredit Lindsay Gaetani, the jury should not be ignorant to the fact that this guy's getting sued and wants her to be discredited. That is not the kind of thing that the public can have confidence in when they find out that the prosecutor who is judging everyone's credibility.
Watch what salt does to your knees.
Why does Grandpa yell, ow, 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 every time he bends his knee?
Is discrediting her, crediting another, and it's tantamount to him giving unsworn testimony.
This goes back to the issue of relevance that we talked about before. And this is where I'm a little bit hung up. What McCabe does 6, 8, 10 months after the allegations here, because the allegations with regard to McCabe, as I can tell, they occur on 6/6, 9/20, and 7/22. Those are the 3 dates where she's alleged to have been intimidated. So none of these matters involving Gaetani develop until perhaps December, right?
Some of her testimony, though, Judge, will corroborate other evidence we have of Jen McCabe's pattern of surveilling Mr. Kearney.
But when
before he was indicted.
But when?
In 2023, July of 2023. We have documented evidence of her, the intimidated and emotionally harmed witness, contacting Mr. Kearney on social media and alluding to the fact, I know where you are, which is exactly what we're talking about with Gaetani.
That's a fair point to cross-examine her on. No doubt.
Don't know what she's going to say. From our perspective, having seen some of her other testimony and other proceedings, we don't just assume that she's going to be forthright. And we have a right. She's the star witness of this case.
I may need to know a little bit more about that. In terms of, if you want to file something and pound it to me, that's fine.
The final point I'll make, to Your Honor, before you have any other questions, is it's important that we're raising this now. This is well before trial. The prosecution is clearly on notice. I don't know where this may lead to, what else could be discovered. You know, this is a unique case, as you've noted, and evidence is discovered in all kinds of odd ways, believe me, with how these cases proceed and who shares what and those kinds of things. It's critical for us to make this record now, alert the court respectfully.
I have no issue with you making a record.
Because if it comes up later after a jury is impaneled, there is a risk of a mistrial, and that will not be our fault. And we think at that point,
listen, Mr. Bitter, I have no issue with you bringing the motion. You're supposed to. You need to advocate for your client.
He all but admits what we talked about earlier, which is this was a test, right? He wants this on record. He wants to test the judge's temperature, how he's going to respond to this kind of thing. What, is he a neutral judge? Is he a biased judge one way or another, right? This was the strategic gamble. And in my opinion, it played very well for Turtleboy and his defense team. So anybody who's saying anything other than that doesn't understand how to play the art of war, doesn't understand how to play chess. I mean, these are strategic moves. Lawyers do this shit all the time. There are people in your life that you might not be aware of that aren't lawyers that do this shit too. I mean, this is how some people operate. This is how you have to operate if you're in the legal field.
In any way you think is appropriate. I'm just trying to flesh it out here so I understand exactly what the issues are. I'm struggling with the relevance issues. You may have to give me more information on that.
Thousands of women have reversed hair loss in 3 to 9 months thanks to minoxidil. Introducing the minoxidil.
So I understand it a little bit better because the way I read things, they're much later in time. Now, if you've got something that's more contemporaneous to the alleged intimidation, I think that's very, very relevant. And we'd have to sort of play out how that would come in and what the form of that evidence. So we'll come back to that at some point when you're ready to talk to me about that. But talk to me about this. Your motion had 3 parts. Your affidavit had 3 parts. And one was the 2024. That's moot because it's already been done. The second was this.
You said your motion had 3 parts. I thought you had your panties in a bundle in the beginning when you were talking about this is an affidavit and there's no motion. I'm just playing. This
issue. The third was this idea that I could preclude the executive branch from investigating things in 2025. Can you give me some authority which says I have the ability to do that?
It's a unique situation, Your Honor. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there is a case law roadmap to what's happening, but what's important to recognize here, you've been asking us these questions about how is Gaetani relevant. She is extraordinarily relevant to what we're calling the 2025 investigation, which results in these search warrants for the phones of Karen Reed.
Which is still pending with Judge Krupp.
Right.
Let me play that out 2 ways. What if Judge Krupp says, he can have access to the phones. Then we're going to have a much longer, longer issue, correct? Is that going to come into this case?
Well, they're telling us that 2 people are under investigation. I mean, it's hard for us to know, right? I mean, they're attempting allegedly to indict Mr. Kearney and Karen Reed for actions in which they already tried to indict and a grand jury said no. And now 2 years later with phones that have been gathering dust, we need to look in these phones and,
See, and this is why, Dan, this is why I'm choosing to now and forever forward give Karen grace here. I did say some things and I did make an apology, not that she's listening to me or gives a shit what I say, okay, but just for my own, my own soul, I guess, whatever. I had to come back. If I give a take and then later I'm like, oh, I was a little too emotional with that, I need to really step back and be more compassionate. I'm always going to come back and say it. I'm not afraid to say I changed my mind. I'm usually pretty solid, but sometimes that happens, right? And so this is what I mean by why Karen Reed is likely still keeping her distance from Turtleboy, because he's still on trial. I believe that if Turtleboy's case was dismissed tomorrow, that Karen Reed would call Turtleboy up and be like, let's duke it out at the Wilbur. I mean, that's my opinion. I could be wrong, but until his case is dismissed, I don't think she's going to want to do anything because they're still trying to tie her to him for witness intimidation. Now in his case, that's what I'm saying. So this is my psychic, what do you want me to say?
God knows what we'll find. But the point is, the search warrants in that case are critical and certainly could relate to evidence used against Mr. Kearney. There are 2 informants in that search warrant. One of them is Lindsay Gaetani. And the affiant of that warrant is Detective Tully. And there are about 10 paragraphs, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't know the exact number.
I read the warrants.
Relying on her, and it is loaded with information which she provided them. And we're back to the personal interest of Mr. Cosgrove. So that really was meant to just inform the court that this is a living, breathing issue.
I will agree with you. It's a living, breathing issue. It's just not a living, breathing issue over which I have authority.
Fair enough.
When that comes to me, if it comes to me, I don't know if my special assignment encompasses that. We'll see. But if it comes to me, then we'll deal with that issue. I can find nothing which gives me the authority to restrict that activity. Judge Krupp has the authority on the search warrants, and he'll make a decision in due time. But I find nothing which gives me the authority to restrict prospectively an investigation that's being done by the executive branch.
Judge, just before I sit down, and unless the court has any other questions, I just want to correct one last thing. Your Honor had mentioned about a lawsuit being settled. That is not the lawsuit involving Mr. Cosgrove. There's no...
Sure it is. I looked at the docket this morning.
Not with him. That's with other parties to the litigation, is my understanding.
Okay. Well, let me play this out for you. It's, as I said, I have some familiarity with this immunity issue since I routinely see these motions. It's a very strong motion to dismiss.
You should not be using pillows like these if you're a side sleeper. What they're doing is causing a lot of stress in your shoulder and your...
Thank you, but I'm not interested in that.
If that motion is filed and heard, again, accusation is one thing, but it would seem like there's a little bit more. You'd have to have...
Hey, I just got to pause for a minute. Props to the judge, okay? Let's just look at this. This is a handsome, bald man, all right? There are not many, in my opinion. Nothing against bald men. Nothing against them. I'm just saying, probably you could say the same about bald women. How about that? There are some women that can pull it off. They just have the most beautifully shaped head. They're the same women that never wear makeup. They just like have the perfect complexion. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to pull off a bald head, guys. This guy's doing it. So I'm just noting this. Okay, I'm just noting this.
Some substance to it to actually disqualify him, but I'll keep an open mind on it. Anything more?
Anything else?
No, I read all your stuff.
Thank you.
Anything more?
No, sir.
Mr. Bradley, anything?
No, Judge, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Kearney, Mr. Cosgrove, If not, if you're conflicted out in one case, why aren't you conflicted out on the other? That's the real big question here.
Well, I don't think the two necessarily follow, Your Honor. Obviously, before I filed my motion seeking to withdraw in the other case, I would have been a poor attorney indeed if I didn't think about whether it also required me to withdraw in this case. And the motion to withdraw was, at least I attempted to phrase it quite carefully, to say that I had a conflict because Ms. Kearney was the alleged victim in that case. Not that she was a witness in that case, but that she was the alleged victim. And as we all know, Your Honor, the Commonwealth does not represent the victim. The Commonwealth represents the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. But nevertheless, it was essentially an argument that I would be making in that case.
I'm just pausing it right now because let's just be honest, okay? This is something I realized as I got older. There was a lot of times I would listen to people like this where they just word salad, bobbly gobbledygook. It's bullshit, right? I listened to that as a kid. Teachers, people who had authority over me, whatever. And I always question authority, always. But anyway. And I'd be like, I'm so stupid. Like, I must be so dumb, right? Because I don't understand. I can't follow this, right? And as I got older, I realized something. It's not stupidity if you're not following something. The other person is full of shit, and you're detecting that they're lying because what they're saying is not clear to themselves and therefore not to you or me or anyone else. What the F did this guy just say? Does anybody know? This is what I mean. He's in the shadows. That's when you operate in the shadows.
That Mr. Kearney committed crimes against Ms. Kearney. That, it seemed to me, put me in the impossible position of raising the suggestion that I was going forward to vindicate Ms. Kearney's interests, perhaps to mollify her or to persuade her to withdraw the action against me. That's not the case where she is simply a witness.
Well, what do you say to the idea that you'd want to discredit her for your own benefit if it came to trial?
Well, that's a very interesting point, Your Honor. And there's a couple of problems with it.
The new Patriot Power Generator 2200X has 2,240
It's actually an ad
watts
I
of
might be
power,
interested in.
a full
Okay.
39% more.
One problem is the practical matter. I don't see how any way that I went about discrediting her testimony in this trial would spill over to the other litigation, because it doesn't seem to me that it would be in any way relevant to the other litigation. I suppose I could adopt the defense theory that everything is relevant to every issue, but I don't see how indicating that Ms. Kearney was not credible in making statements about the investigation of Mr. Kearney here would have any relevance to an accusation that I breached some sort of duty to her by turning over a police report, which is the contention. Also, Your Honor, assuming that this even survives a motion to dismiss, and I'm talking now about the Middlesex case, I don't think there's any factual dispute.
Worcester case. There's nothing in Middlesex, right?
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Worcester. Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
all right.
I appreciate the correction. I don't think there's any factual dispute as to what happened. In my capacity as a prosecutor, I provided Mr. Bradel with the police report in question as discovery. It made its way by whatever means from Mr. Bradel to Mr. Kearney, who then publicized details of it and turned it over to a friend, an associate, whatever you want to call him, who actually put the whole report, as I understand it, on the internet and began pillaring Ms. Kearney over her credibility. I don't dispute that I turned that report over as a matter of discovery. If this case ever develops in Middlesex and comes to fruition, I couldn't possibly dispute that. That's the absolute factual truth. From that point on, it becomes a pure question of law as to whether I breached some sort of duty under the statute to Ms. Kearney under the mistaken belief that I had a Rule 14 obligation to turn this over as the statement of a witness who had testified against Mr. Kearney in another matter, and as bearing on her credibility and her possible bias. Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I was wrong legally. But that's not a matter of discrediting her. That's a matter that is purely a question of law. And it's also not a matter.
How do we avoid the circumstance? But she's called to the stand, and there's some relevant testimony that she can offer. You wouldn't call her, but the defense calls her. And you're in the midst of cross-examining her, and she says, well, this is why I sued you. What do we do with that?
I'm not sure what you do with it, Your Honor. Maybe we deal with that with the motion in limine to preclude her from mentioning the Middlesex.
Well, fuck's sake. It's not, look at Broken Baker's face. Like I said, you got to follow this guy if you don't. I'm pretending like we're live streaming together, but really I'm streaming his stream. So you definitely got to follow him and give him a like. Regardless, it's ridiculous, dude. This motion, or it wasn't a motion, it was, let's call it a strategic gamble affidavit, was how many months ago? You knew that you should have an argument for this at the tip of your tongue. You have so little care and regard. You have so little care and regard for the law and for justice. And as a former judge, you're specially appointed and you're retired. Do you have another case to work on? I'm confused. It's been months, dude. You don't have a good argument left to just lay it down. You got to be like, I don't know, Judge. Who knows? I don't know. What can we do? What? Seriously. It's going to be a joke if this trial continues with him. And I have this suspicion that it is. I really do. I have a suspicion that they will not recuse this man, even though he is giving the shittiest argument. I'm not a lawyer. Just my opinion. Disclaimer there. Just saying.
Doesn't sound like a terribly controllable witness.
Well, that's why we have skillful Superior Court judges, Your Honor. If I could
if you can find one,
be a little obviously self-serving in my comment. I'm sure Your Honor, both in his prior career, as I have in mine, and in your present position, has dealt with witnesses that are difficult to control.
What about the possibility of someone else coming in? Is that something that's realistic or not realistic?
I didn't quite hear you. Something else?
What about the possibility of bringing someone in to deal with Miss Gaetano if indeed she's a witness?
I'll listen to what his answer is, but that's just ridiculous. Like, this judge is so trying to bend over backwards. He's now saying, like, we'll bring in someone else. Who the hell are they going to get to do this? Another special prosecutor. They're going to bring in Brennan. Who are they going to come in? Who's going to come in? No, because Brennan would have conflict as well. I would allege. But regardless, I mean, I think he would. But regardless, who are they going to get? First, they got to find somebody, and that's not so easy. And secondly, even if they did, it's going to be such a big production. It's like, stop. It's like in the first, well, and the second, right? Can't retry. They let them know it's the FBI in the second one, right? Gosh, I can't remember now. But it's like, come on, this is getting ridiculous. You're really doing a lot right now, Judge.
Would be done.
Well, it would solve a lot of issues. Mr. Bedrow? I mean, you're not contending that the case goes away completely. You're contending that he can't deal with Gaetano.
Unless, Your Honor, I understand what Your Honor is saying, and it sounds at first blush that the idea that if there's some kind of ethical screen, for lack of a better term, that just keeps.
You want to file free? Hit it.
The quickest lash application you'll ever experience. Look at
All
how
right, guys,
easy
I
these
can't
are
skip
to
it.
apply. Lily lashes sell.
All right, fine.
A separate wall between Mr. Cosgrove and Ms. Gaetani. But if the issue of the lawsuit comes out in any way, whether it goes.
Well, if he's not the one asking the question, I'd be hard pressed to figure out why the issue of the lawsuit would come out.
Sir, have you met or heard Ms. Gaetani? I'm just saying. She's a lot like me. So, in that regard, she doesn't hold her tongue.
Could. I don't know.
But that is my job to control what comes out. But so
Yes.
Legally, let's think about it not from a witness point of view, but from a legal point of view. If Mr. Cosgrove's not the one examining the witness, I preclude that evidence because it's really not very relevant. I think we all agree.
Your Honor, I mean, look, it's certainly not for me to suggest what could happen. It's for the court to rule and the prosecutors to figure it out. I guess the first question is, why are we having this conversation, and why haven't they done that? Why is this a one-man show when this is a serious issue that there could be peril?
Well, that's why we're having this conversation.
Right.
Ahead of time, as you properly noted.
The other thing, if I could just respond briefly, I don't know if Mr. Cosgrove.
I think he's not done yet. I just was raising that one point.
I'll hold it.
Cosgrove has barely started, but go ahead.
All right. So it would appear to me what you're saying to me is, if there was a replacement for that issue, that would resolve this problem.
I don't know that it would. It's certainly a much more realistic situation where you could avoid, no question, having Mr. Cosgrove comment on the credibility of Ms. Gaetani.
You'd agree with me that does happen in trials, not with some frequency, but it's not unheard of for that to happen.
No, it's not unheard of at all. I mean, there are times, again, where you have a prosecutor who takes a statement of a defendant.
Sure.
They have to be a witness, these kinds of things can happen all the time.
We find ways around them.
But we're also, to be clear, we're dealing with a very rare situation where the witness is a former prosecution witness accusing the prosecutor who she testified for previously of misconduct. Now,
that's a big conflict of interest. I mean, this is the kind of, and God bless Mark Bedrow, a man of brilliance, a man who knows how to emotionally regulate. Okay. This is what a real man is right here. He's not going to yell and scream and get mad. He is going to give you truth, straight up law. He has thought through every angle, perspective, anything this guy says, the judge can throw him. He has already done a PhD level debate to himself on that. You're not going to beat it. And the thing that makes him even extra great is he's a good guy, right? If he was a bad guy, you could still say, yeah, he's got all these talents, but he's evil, you know? This guy's a good guy. So he's like a superhero in a sense, you know? Someone with incredible ability. to litigate, to debate, to speak, to capture attention, to be charismatic, but not overdoing it. Not a Hollywood charisma, just like an understated charisma. This guy is he's amazing.
If the prosecution and the court approves of that process, wants to have that laid bare, then I suppose it could. But the other problem,
just on this issue, we're not going to hijack the rest of the argument.
Okay,
just on the issue of replacement.
I had a brief response.
Yeah, he's not done. You only get to respond when he's done.
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove.
Well, just on that point, I have yet to hear how any comment that I might make.
The first ingredient in Dove whole body deodorant is
alcohol. Alcohol is the number one ingredient in Dove.
On the credibility of Ms. Gaetani's testimony in the case before the court would even come in or be relevant in the Middlesex case or assist me in any way.
Stop playing.
Am I going to go over to Middlesex Superior Court and, frankly, I find it hard to believe that I or whoever would be representing me would be brazen enough to say to the judge, well, I want to talk about all the ways in which my client, Mr. Cosgrove, impeached Ms. Gaetani in a case that has nothing whatsoever to do with the case before the court. There's just not going to be any bleed through whatsoever, it seems to me. We don't even have, frankly, Ms. Gaetani's now at the point, based on her public statements, where she has faced in so many different directions, that I find it a little difficult to believe that either the Commonwealth or the defense is going to call her in this case.
You really, Cosgrove? Really, you find that difficult to believe? This is the kind of MFer that goes to Bohemian Grove and participates in the cremation of care. If you really understand that, the cremation of care, what they're doing, it's pure evil. Because the care that we take and the things that we do is all we are. That's why robots doing shit for you, or I'm not saying people can't be helped by certain things. I'm just saying there's a certain care that you take when you clean your kitchen, or if it's not cleaning, maybe it's gardening, or maybe it's something else, but it's a care that you take in everything that you do for yourself and your family, your loved ones, your friends. They hate it that you take care in that. If you cook a nice bowl of chicken soup for your kid when they're sick, the care you take that goes into that soup is so tasty because of all the love and care. That's what they do at Bohemian Grove, the cremation of care. They hate it that we care about anything. These people are evil. And that's what Hank Brennan reminded me of, and that's what my psychic is telling me Cosgrove is. So I'm just saying.
Mr. Counsel has carefully said we may call her for the defense. This may be a contingency that doesn't even arise, but that's sort of a side point. Let me just take a couple of points. I was going to ask Your Honor to take judicial notice of the pleadings in the Middlesex case and the docket. It appears you've effectively done that, but let me make an oral motion on the record.
Any objection comes?
No. Purpose.
Okay. Agreement. I'll take those as judicial notice as to the Worcester Superior Court case.
And one of the interesting, unique things about this.
Listen, I'll be honest. Can anyone articulate what Cosgrove's argument is here? What the distinction is between the two cases? The one where he recused himself and the one here where he's fighting not to recuse. Can anyone articulate that yet? Because he can't articulate it in a manner that I can understand. Has anyone else grasped what this mofo is actually saying?
Alleged conflict of interest, which is a little different from the typical conflict of interest case. At least I haven't found anything precisely on point, and I don't think the defense has either, but maybe they'll prove me wrong in a moment.
He's the main chef of DB Kitchen. He's excellent chef. We all need to be supportive.
Is the whole operation by which this alleged conflict has come about in the Middlesex case has come.
Thank you. This confirms my earlier allegation that he's speaking gobbledygook, word salad, because he himself has no actual argument and has no fucks to give.
About what is it that enables Ms. Kearney to make the claim that she's seeking to make against me in the Middlesex case? It's that defendant took the report I gave him as discovery, or I gave his counsel as discovery in the other case, publicized it, and then created a harm that Ms. Kearney alleges accrued to her from that publication. In other words, if we're applying but-for causation, to sound like a tort lawyer for a minute, if we take Mr. Kearney's actions out of the whole proceeding, there's no harm whatsoever to Ms. Kearney with my, as I see it, fulfilling my Rule 14 obligation. So Your Honor has the unusual situation here of a defendant who has been but for cause of the alleged conflict, seeking to profit from that conflict by removing the prosecutor of his case, which I think is worth some consideration by the court. What I would like to do now, Your Honor,
is that really his argument?
Since the defendant has had the opportunity for a reply brief, which frankly doesn't particularly go to these motions, particularly, but more to the point, the defendant's reply in support of the motion to disqualify Robert Cosgrove. I'd like to examine that in some detail and take the opportunity to reply to some of his.
Really? You'd like to examine that in some detail? Attorney Cosgrove, you'd like to examine it in some detail and then take the time to reply? What have you been doing for the past several months? What have you been doing, bro? Seriously, what have you been doing? The judge has been doing shit. Clearly, the judge has been like, he was pissed about it, but he had to go through and look and do all this shit and piece it together. What have you been doing, Cosgrove? This is what you're supposed to be talking about or submitted or whatever, even if it wasn't procedurally correct. That's why he's a bitch. Sorry. That's why he's behaving as a cowardly man. Okay? He's behaving very cowardly. Because he needs money, is my guess. And the sarcasm is very sharp here. And they're hung up on procedures. So we all know that they're asking you to recuse yourself. We all know it, including you. But because it wasn't formally done, you didn't even give the thought to it at all. You were like, nope, not even going to worry about it until they follow a formal procedure like we do here. they made a strategic gamble. They were able to test the judge's temperature, get a lot of information, see where he's leaning with things. It was awesome. Brilliant. And we get nothing from Cosgrove. So they get to see Cosgrove in action as well. It says a lot to them about Cosgrove. What does it say to you guys about Cosgrove? To me, it says he has 0 fucks. He is dishonest and lazy. Is he getting paid by the hour? What is he doing? They learned a lot.
Well, it really hasn't become an issue here. That involves another party whose case has been dismissed. The case regarding the defendant and that witness is gone. That's dismissed. So I don't really know if that's all that relevant to any. Mr. Beddoe didn't even raise it.
You're not a horse, and a bland bucket of rice isn't dinner. It's disappointment.
Here we go again, another day.
Are they trying to say I'm
For
a border
purposes of
guys?
this, Your Honor, the briefs are what they are. We submitted them. I just raised the issues I thought would be helpful for the court today.
Yeah, I didn't find that anything with regard to that particular trooper terribly compelling because I don't understand how he would be part of this case. Fair to say?
You're talking about which trooper?
The trooper whose case was dismissed, Bouchard.
I'm not talking about the, I'm sorry for interrupting, Your Honor. I'm not talking about the motion that they filed with respect to discovery for Mr. Proctor.
Oh, I'm not dealing with discovery right now. Yeah.
I'm talking about the motion that's captioned, Sir, reply in support of motion to disqualify Robert Cox.
Paper 127 you're talking about.
I don't know the number, to be honest with you, but
this one here?
yes,
Yep,
exactly.
that's 127.
Okay.
Okay, go on, I'll hear you.
All right. So, the defense begins by complaining that my response envisions my conflict in a vacuum, and that it ignores the whole context, which is basically a preface, Your Honor, for talking about everything else that the defense is unhappy with about the case, except issues that are relevant to whether or not I should be disqualified. There is, on page 1 of that motion, a suggestion that Mr. Morrissey recused his office from prosecuting Mr. Kearney due to a conflict created by an investigating journalist who publicly accused the DA's office. I'm not sure that Mr. Morrissey has made a statement explaining why he appointed a special prosecutor, but I'm ready to stand to be corrected, but certainly this is the explanation that might sound most favorable to the defendant, but what does it have to do with disqualifying me? He then talks about accusations against Lieutenant Tully and former Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Uri Buchanan. What does that have to do with disqualifying me?
I'd have to read the affidavit to be 100% certain, but I know the way the Beddoe letters work, and I know how brilliantly Attorney Beddoe writes things. So I'm gonna take a wild guess here and say this is bullshit right here. This is bullshit, but anyway.
He talks about actions by Sergeant Buchanan taken after he left the Norfolk District Attorney's office in support of a legal civil dispute between Ms. Reed and the alleged victims. In this case, that has nothing to do with whether I should be disqualified.
No, it doesn't, and I'm certain that Mark Beddoe didn't say that it did. If I recall, this was like a mega motion. They called it a mega motion, so he thought it was a motion too, but I guess it It wasn't procedurally written whatever the hell. But I'm sure that he discussed all of these things in terms of dismissal, but not recusal. They're two separate things. And I'm positive that Cosgrove knows that. And God bless Vatero for sitting there. He's probably doing breathing exercises to maintain his blood pressure right now because he is a master at emotional regulation. Okay? Because right now Cosgrove is just like full tilt gaslight, just like Brennan. Remember, Brennan just bold-faced lying in that courtroom. Bold-faced lying in that courtroom. Remember that? Karen Reed had to sit there and swallow that. Remember the stare down with Karen Reed and Brennan? That shit was amazing. I did a short on that with laser eyes because it was so good. I loved it. She made him feel uncomfortable. He started to stutter, Brennan. Anyway, let me get back to this.
We've talked about my voluntary withdrawal from the indictments concerning Ms. Gattani. And if Your Honor would take a look at page 6, where we have bullet points. All right. The first bullet point is absolutely relevant, and that's what we've talked about, that I'm being sued for intentional misconduct by Ms. Gattani. And we hear that Lieutenant Tully is being sued by Ms. Gattani. So what? The Detective Tully has been sued by Karen Reed. What's that got to do with the price of beans, as they say? That there were disciplinary proceedings against Lieutenant Tully.
Guys, this is giving me agita, and I'm not even arguing it. Like, it's just like, it's giving me agita because it's just all gobbledygook, you know? It's not coherent. It's not, there's no passion, there's no gumption, there's no fucks given here, guys.
That might be relevant on cross, you'd agree?
Oh, yeah, it might have some relevance on cross, but what has it to do with disqualifying me, Your Honor? They weren't disciplinary proceedings
Fair point.
against me. We hear that Ms. Reed is suing Sergeant Buchanan. Well, good luck to Ms. Reed, but what has it to do to disqualifying me in this case? We hear that Buchanan was disciplined. That Proctor has been sued by Ms. Reed. That Proctor has had disparaging text about Ms. Reed. There are two things that the upcoming case should not be about, Your Honor, and I'm sorry I'm losing my voice here, excuse me. One, it should not be a trial of the case that has been null pros concerning Ms. Gattani. And two, it should not be a retrial of the Karen Reed case. None of this stuff is relevant.
Switch to TurboTax.
Oh, sorry.
File free in the app by 2/28. All 100% free. Now this is taxes.
Thousands of women have reversed hair loss in 3 to 9 months thanks to minoxidil. Introducing the Minoxidil Plus.
Gattani's testimony will undermine the credibility of Detective Lieutenant Tully and Ms. McCabe, which will subject her to cross-examination by Mr. Cosgrove. Now, let's look specifically, if I can skip ahead in the memorandum. The argument that's been made.
He's so funny.
A little later on in the memorandum, in which Your Honor has heard again today. And I'm looking now at page 16, Your Honor, the first full paragraph. Ms. Gattani will testify that Detective Lieutenant Tully intentionally mishandled her cell phone by tampering with and or deleting its contents. Detective Lieutenant Tully will deny this. Mr. Cosgrove has accepted Detective Lieutenant Tully's explanation without any further investigation. Well, I don't know how the defense...
He's choking on his lies, in my opinion. It's like he can't. I think it was Bones. Was it Bones? Someone in my chat was talking about how the human brain doesn't like to lie, right? We don't want to lie. It's not logical. It's just like it's more coherent with our nervous system to tell the truth. But there's all of these things that are placed out in society, you know, particularly for women, if I'm being honest, that, you know, tell you, oh, like, you know, if you want to be feminine, don't speak up, don't ask questions, you know, don't be too curious about things that don't involve you. But even with men too, you know, men are like this as well. In our society lately, I would say the past 20, 30 years, it does seem like they've been doing this to men as well, and that women are sort of like now being the domineering force. But regardless, we've been taught that this is the truth. And so when you speak the truth, it just comes out, it's free, whatever. And when you have to lie, your brain has to work more to do that. And you tell on yourself all the time. And there's a channel, it's not called The Revealing or Truth. It might be called Truth Revealed, but the guy who runs it is a former, he worked for the government by like reading people. It's really good. So if I remember the name, I'll put it down below. All right, let's finish this up, guys.
Knows that I've accepted Detective Lieutenant Tully's explanation without any further investigation. But let's put this on a timeline. It has been the contention of the defense from the start of the case that certain items were missing from the download of Ms. Gattani's cell phone. And their explanation is that must be because Detective Lieutenant Tully deleted it. I responded to that. Ms. Gattani is a latecomer to this discussion. She is only now, in the form of either public statements or representations by the defense as to her new position, suggested that this is because Detective Lieutenant Tully tampered with it or deleted its contents.
This is the fastest proven way to actually clear chronic sinus congestion with no drugs and no surgery.
By the way, I don't know how she would know that because she was not there during the download of her cell phone and the transfer of it. But at any rate, my response as to what happened to the cell phone occurred before Ms. Gattani made any of these statements whatsoever. I don't know how it can be that I have been siding with Detective Lieutenant Tully over Ms. Gattani. I haven't seen an affidavit from Ms. Gattani. I haven't seen anything from Ms. Gattani other than hearsay, which is just a representation. And certainly, but let's assume that I do, as they put it, side with Detective Lieutenant Tully in cross-examining Ms. Gattani and in the closing argument. What does that have to do with defending my position in the Middlesex case, and how is it relevant, and how would it even be introduced?
Middlesex again.
I have no idea. Let me back up.
Oh gosh.
And make a couple of other points.
Speed it up just because
I want to turn to the legal argument. Say a little bit about the law.
You know.
And I suspect Your Honor has probably already looked at the two cases cited by Mr. Betterow, Commonwealth versus Dunlap, and the other case is named USD Health, which involves a complicated civil action involving the Church of Scientology and others. The first thing to say about these cases is they're Pennsylvania cases, not Massachusetts cases. So at best, I would say they are persuasive authority, not binding authority.
I don't think Mr. Betterow contests otherwise.
The second thing I would say is that they are both opinions in which the court declined to rule for the defense on the conflict of interest argument. In the first case, Dunlap, the decision of the Superior Court judge was affirmed by an equally divided court.
The dissenting justices characterize the other side as the majority, but the opinion itself says that the appellate court was equally divided. So I'm not sure if it's even good as dicta. It seems to me it has no precedential value at all, but if it does have precedential value, it was a ruling in favor of the Commonwealth. And what were the facts? In a sentence from the dissent, that is, those who believe there was a conflict of interest, the district attorney.
Sorry, I have to pause for this one. Raise your hand if Santa was your first PSYOP.
Who prosecuted this case also represented the victim in a civil suit arising out of the same transaction. That is a mile away. That is a stadium away. That is a continent away from the facts in this case. I am certainly not representing Ms. Kearney in a civil suit arising out of.
I did hear that too. That's right. I heard that. Gosh, let's go back. You know what? I went over that too fast, darn it. But it's so painful to listen to it. What is he talking about? Church of Scientology.
The events that bring the defendant into court. Now let's take a look at USD Health, I guess it is, which is.
Sorry, I have to pause because we got to talk about this for a second. This is what happens if you're new to my channel. I will do little breaks because my mind ferrets off, especially when I'm engaging with the chat. But oh, okay, Brooke remembers Scientology. Okay, if that's what you're talking about, because I'm definitely, if you can drop it there, it'd be awesome. But no, I gotta say, Santa definitely the first time. Santa they go hard with though, guys. Santa they go hard with. I did a little video on this. I was actually gonna make T-shirts that said Santa was my first PSYOP. No, doll. No, you are not distracting. You are right on time. It's all good. I like to interact with you guys. But yeah, Santa's my first PSYOP. Obviously, you know, but they go hard, right? Like they even have on, is it the Weather Channel or one of those channels? They show, the meteorologist, NASA gets involved, guys. They got to find out where he is, where he's flying, what's going on. There's so much level of deception. If you want to know how they deceive us, look at how they deceive little kids. And you as a child, if you believed in Santa right now, look at how hard they go, guys. Think about it. So I don't care what Kane says. Kane. Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, Kane's definitely not distracting at all. Bones. Maybe he just doesn't like to struggle for the attention when you're there. Are you dead serious? Am I making a joke when it's not true, when it's actually serious? Are you guys, am I being too deadpan? Okay, so let me just get back to this. Seriously. Santa. They go hard with that PSYOP. Think about all the shit. And as a kid, you're like, wait, how is Santa at the mall, mama? Because my friend also went to the mall today. And how did he do that? You start asking these questions like, oh, no. It's just, you believe whatever they say. Think about it. The craziest part, though, is when they get Santa on the radar and these actual weather people are lying straight up to kids. Straight up.
The federal case. That does have some interesting parallels to this case. According to the decision, and I apologize for not having the pin sites, but I think Your Honor will readily find them. The defendants contended on appeal that they were denied due process because two prosecutors were defendants in a civil action filed by the Church of Scientology 10 days after the events that went down in this particular case. And they alleged, and the events that went down were a search of the Scientology's office in Los Angeles.
You should not be using pillows like these if you're a side sleeper. What they're doing is causing a lot of...
And they alleged that the raids were conducted in bad faith with the intention of violating Scientology's constitutional rights. You can look back at the memos filed by the defense, and the contention they're trying to make, one of them is that this is a bad faith prosecution. So that applies here. What is different here is the civil suit apparently precedes the raid that the prosecutors make in the defense office in the Church of Scientology. Here, there's nothing like that. The events that the defendant was charged with in this case occur before any involvement by Ms. Kearney, before any involvement, by that matter, with me. And those issues are pretty well set, and they have consistently been followed through. Now, here's another similarity between Height and the current case. I'll just read a sentence or two. The government contends that prosecutors cannot be disqualified when sued by a defendant, because defendants could then remove whichever prosecutor they please simply by suing him. Now, of course, the defendant isn't actually suing me here. He's simply seeking to profit from a witness suing me. But certainly a suit by the defendant would be a much more direct potential conflict. I have not gone so far as to represent to the court that I cannot be disqualified when sued by a defendant or by Ms. Kearney. I think in fairness, the court can look at it. But the federal court, the argument was that any suit complaining of an action taken in a prosecutor's quasi-judicial capacity would be frivolous and non-disqualifying because he enjoys absolute immunity as a prosecutor. Cite to a U.S. Supreme Court case. I believe as Your Honor reads through, we'll find that the court in Height pretty much bought that.
This is so boring, guys. This is really just so boring. I do have to say this is hilarious. For some reason, I'm picturing, if you've ever seen Monty Python, Search for the Holy Grail, when the guy gets stuck in the castle with the nuns and they're all like swooning over him. I'm picturing Kane basically stuck in a Scientology and all the women in their night garbs swooning all over him and he's running around. Anyway. Also, Keen, is the dog there, is that a, what kind of dog is that? I mean, I don't think it's a Great Dane. I'm not sure. The girl was so pretty. There you go. Do you know the movie I'm talking about? Monty Python, Search for the Holy Grail? Yes, one of the best. One of my favorites, honestly. I mean, I've seen that thing at least 100 times. All right.
Argument. And they go on to say that appellants have made no credible claim of actual prejudice based on the prosecutor's alleged pecuniary or personal interest in the outcome of this prosecution. I certainly have no pecuniary interest in the outcome of this prosecution. I have no personal interest in the outcome of this prosecution. And nothing in this prosecution is going to affect anything that's going on in Middlesex.
It's not Middlesex.
Worcester Superior Court, Your Honor.
Understood. Any further? From Mr. Cosgrove, sorry.
No, I'll stop at that point, Your Honor.
Mr. Bedrock.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. We might as well start from the back with U.S. v. Health, Your Honor, which is 668 Federal 2nd, 1238, D.C. Circuit, 1981. The author was buried the lead about health and about Dunlop. Those were appellate arguments post-conviction. So that is a huge distinction about a time.
My favorite one, I'm gonna slow this down so we can hear the goat talk. But my favorite one is the rabbit, when they're like, they come upon that guy like, what is your name? And he's like, my name is Tim. And then Tim and everyone goes to the cave where the rabbit is. And then Tim's like, what? Behind the rabbit? And he's like, no, it is the rabbits. And he's like, they're all laughing and stuff. And then the rabbit, I think it's the rabbit of Connemara or whatever. The rabbit like goes at the jugular and like kills the guy, you know. And then they're like, oh my God, holy shit. I did a whole skit on my dog's Instagram page. I have an Instagram for my dog. It's Winston the Pimp, you know, Winston the Pimp. But anyway, and he's the rabbit. I photoshopped him as the rabbit because when he goes after bigger dogs, he looks like the rabbit going after their neck. It's just hilarious. All right, anyway, sorry. That was Oh yeah, there was a lot of vibes in there, and it was called Medicino, which turns out one of my excellent peeps here. Again, it might have been Bones that told me this. Told me where that came from, and it was an Italian undergrounds for homosexuals, and I think like the 1910s. So it was really interesting.
Motion in advance, raising issues which could lead to a conflict. We all know that raising a conflict on appeal when you could have raised it before is looked at in an entirely different way. And the relevant language from Health that I would direct the court to is on page 1276, which states, given the need to promote the appearance of justice, a trial court on timely motion to wit, like here, should disqualify a prosecutor from participating in a criminal action when he has a personal conflicting interest in a civil case. And that's here.
The keywords there are alleging bad faith. I'm not sure that there's an allegation in those other complaints of bad faith. There's an allegation he violated the statute. I'm not sure where it talks about bad faith.
Sued him for intentional infliction of emotional distress.
Negligent infliction. There's a difference.
She sued for intentional.
I read negligent, but I'll go on.
Respectfully, Your Honor, there are deliberate allegations of intentional misconduct in the complaint, but that's the court can obviously go back and one of us.
We took judicial notice.
Exactly. One of us is right.
I read this one as negligent, but that's.
Dunlop is the same situation, Your Honor. It's post-conviction. The other issue, and I want to now go back to the beginning that Mr. Cosgrove started with, he illustrates the whole problem here. He's defending himself, and I have no opinion on the merits of Ms. Gaetani's claim, okay? As a lawyer, I sympathize. But he started by telling you that this case is going to get dismissed, and all I did was turn over this. He is illustrating front and center his personal interest, that Gaetani is accusing him of things he didn't do. And the conflict, the personal interest, isn't the outcome.
He's not accusing things he didn't do. He acknowledges doing it.
But he's justifying it and saying she's trying to do this, she's not credible. The point is this. The personal interest for Mr. Cosgrove is not whether he was wrongfully sued or whether it has any merit. His good name has been attacked. And like anyone else, he has an absolute right and a personal interest in defending himself. And
that's right. That's the heart of the argument. That's it. It's that basic. And if Cosgrove wasn't so money hungry, he would just say you're right and recuse himself. This is ridiculous. They're even fighting over it. But here's the problem. One, Cosgrove is obviously desperate for money. So he's not going to do that. And two, the judge knows if he does say recuse him, then who the fuck are they going to get to prosecute Turtleboy? Because they've already gone, this would be the second special prosecutor off the case now. Because no actual prosecutor that you guys already pay for with your tax dollars in Massachusetts wants to take it. They have to pay extra. That's how you know he's going to get off anyway. He sold out the Wilbur, like he said. Nobody's going to prosecute.
Again, the proper forum to do that is not while prosecuting a case in which his accuser is a witness, his co-defendant is a witness, and Ms. Gaetani is going to probably impeach, assuming she's allowed to, their star witness, Ms. McCabe. When someone's integrity is attacked, they have a personal interest, especially someone as credentialed and respected as Mr. Cosgrove. We all understand that as lawyers and judges, but that doesn't mean you get to prosecute the case. That's for you to decide, obviously. And we're talking about an appearance. If this looks terrible, which leads to my next point. Mr. Cosgrove went through all of these allegations in our papers about, Proctor had this, Tully's been sanctioned, Buchanan, it's literally aligned with Jennifer McCabe, which we wrote about supporting her. Buchanan was a witness in this case too, and part of the investment.
But not anymore.
This stuff not only tastes good, it lasts 25 years. If crap hits the fan, do you really think just stocking up on this is going to help you? Come on, guys, get real. For Patriot survival,
No, but the point is that he is looking at this in a vacuum. The public must have confidence. Part of the analysis of a conflict of interest is the first sentence of the brief that he just cited from, is that the public must have confidence in the criminal justice system. And this latest conflict is a pile on conflict after conflict after conflict in this case. And if the cherry on the sundae...
But let me slow you down, because we're conflating two different issues. I'll agree with you. There's all sorts of issues that have developed over the course of these interrelated prosecutions. Mr. Cosgrove's role, though, is a latecomer and really had nothing to do with any of these other issues. So I can't sit and say I impute all of those other things to Mr. Cosgrove. And therefore, if we look at that massive problems that have developed, he's out. Because the same logic would say the next person who sits in that seat, the same argument would apply.
Let me be very clear. I'm not accusing...
I didn't take it that you were. But my point is, all of those things are conditions which are already present in this prosecution.
They are.
So really the only thing that I'm dealing with is this one issue, because the rest of those things he had nothing to do with.
Well, one of them, he had his other conflict, which he voluntarily sought.
But that came out of the same exact issue.
Yes, well, that's our point. We think it's the same conflict.
I agree with you. But the point I'm trying to draw, and the distinction is, all of these other problems that arose out of the Reed prosecution, real, imagined, substantial, that's really not for me to decide, right? They're all out there, all right? And they're all going to be there no matter what. So whoever sits in that chair right there is going to have all those problems.
Difference, I don't mean to cut you off, Your Honor. The difference is that if it's not Mr. Cosgrove, the man or woman who would be sitting in that chair is not being sued by Ms. Gaetani and co-defendants.
That's my point. That's the only thing I have to analyze at that point.
Our point, respectfully, was that...
I got to celebrate Bones because she just became a member. She became a new member. Let's see. Let's just watch this for a second as a celebration because I'm on the wrong screen. Usually I'd like to put a dance up here.
Really give you a piece of my mind. Oh, I couldn't take the last piece. Now, are you going to mind your own business, or must I really give you a piece of my mind? Oh, I couldn't take the last piece.
All right. That's just my little treat to you all. Thanks for being a new member, honestly. Isn't that a funny scene? I just wanted to share it because I saw it and I thought it was hilarious. Okay. Let me keep going here.
given the public's need for confidence in this case, not the Karen Reed case, that's a whole other conversation for someone else on another day. But this case is filled with conflicts, and I don't think we can all just avert our eyes to and say, but none of that matters, but we're going to have a prosecutor now cross-examine his accuser and then say she's not credible. He also indicated, Your Honor, they're not even committing calling Ms. Gaetani. I can't fathom how that might happen. They use careful language. They may call her. We're the defense. We don't have to do anything. We can take a nap throughout this trial. And there may be such a terrible joke of a case they present that we stand up and rest. So, of course, why would any credible, serious lawyer commit a year in advance? I'm calling this witness. We're alerting Mr. Cosgrove to what we think is his conflict in the court, and we may very well do that. The last point for this, he said there's no affidavit from Ms. Gaetani, or it's all just hearsay about, tampering with her phone. The best basis for that will be the posting online social media by a third party and longtime known critic of Mr. Kearney of messages which did not appear on an extraction report that we got from Tully of Gaetani's phone. And then we never got anything from Tully's phone. We got screenshots of what he claimed were messages. That's the basis for that. Thank you.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so here's what we'll do. I'm going to set another date. Let me talk about this. Mr. Braden, when we selected we penciled in the trial date, I gave you a very long date, longer than I wanted. Your schedule, has it changed? Can we get this thing done earlier? Assuming it's alive?
It's probably gotten worse.
All right, well, we're not moving the case back. The trial date's not going to go backwards.
Okay.
This is a 2023 case. It's 2026. It's not going backwards. If anything, it's going to move forward. So don't.
I know you'll relate to this, Judge. I have the usual slate of like fall murder cases.
I get it. But this one's an old one, and it's set. So I was going to try to move you forward. But if you tell me that can't happen, then that can't happen.
I'm sorry.
All right, but understood. This court is willing to take this case much faster than the current schedule.
We do have a few other pretrial matters to address. Your Honor mentioned the motion to dismiss. Maybe we should schedule that.
What we're going to do is this. I'm going to take this under advisement. We're going to pick a date right now. And either we do a motion to dismiss that day or we're on for appearance of new counsel that day. All right? One or the other. We're going to know. I'll get your decision beforehand. Now, I am open to the idea that if I accept there's a conflict here, I haven't made that determination yet, but if I accept there's a conflict, I'm open to the idea that it's resolvable by having someone else step in and cross-examine her. I think that solves all of the issues. So that might be the easy way here, so everybody can get this thing moving and have this trial, which all parties seem to desire.
So just on that point, I appreciate you kind of reflecting your thought process. But even if counsel stays on the case but doesn't actually do the questioning, it still remains that there's a conflicted counsel on the case, and the jury ought to know
you and I both know
that interest.
Mr. Brett, you and I both know this happens with some frequency, and we work our way around it. Right? The jury's concentration.
That's not an argument, by the way. We both know this happens quite frequently, and we work around it. That's not an argument. There's a lot of shit. There's a lot of shit, Judge. Honestly, that's the whole point, right? There's a lot of shit that gets done frequently, and that doesn't mean it's right. That's a logical fallacy he just did. There's a whole group of them. If you want to learn how to think more critically, study the logical fallacies. It helps a lot to become more neutral with things.
This case is on the events of the case. Now, Ms. McCabe's credibility, I expect to be a robust cross-examination based on all the information that you've gathered. And if it's appropriate to bring in an extrinsic witness, and generally, as you're well aware, it's not. If it's appropriate to have an extrinsic witness on that issue, then we'll take that as we go. But Mr. Cosgrove raises a reasonably good point that there's been some recent case law talking about the police can't create their own exigency, and to some extent, the defendant has created his own exigency here because, in fact, the plaintiff in that case is suing because the contents of her phone were put on the internet. The defendant did that, so there is some. You got to be fair to both sides here and say this is something which only happened because of steps taken by the defendant.
Well, Judge, I don't want our lack of response to that to be perceived as an acknowledgement. I don't want to address that.
I'm basing that simply on what I read in her complaint. Not anything's been represented me today.
Right, exactly. And so just a couple of rewinds here, judges, that the government themselves, in Lieutenant Tully's own affidavit at the time of this back in December of 23, swore in the affidavit that Ms. Gaetani was a witness in the matter. And so I don't think the government can do a 180 and say, oh, she's not really a witness.
Oh, she's a witness, but she was a witness. At that point, they were trying to indict your client for some sort of conspiracy charge, which failed.
Right.
All right. And
the grand jury didn't live and under investigation.
Well, that's another matter. I've told you I have no authority to affect that. What I do know is that was no build.
No build.
Even worse. Okay. That was no build. So I can't imagine a circumstance where I would allow evidence in about a no-build issue. I remain to be persuaded on that.
So what? And just to go to the lowest hanging fruit on why Ms. Catani would be a witness, there's all sorts of screenshots and text messages, and we need these things authenticated before we use them.
I'm not necessarily saying that can't happen.
There's all sorts of reasons.
I get that, but
one's trying to trigger a recusal. There's a lot of good reasons why she's involved in this. The government's own affidavit.
I'm not discrediting what you're saying. What I'm saying to you is, I think there's a way around this. And I don't know that the closing argument is going to change that, because the closing argument is based on what's heard at the trial, and I'd add, in this court's view, and in the proper practice, would be confined strictly to the evidence that's presented before the court. So, no, it's not true.
I appreciate your reflections, Judge. If I could just have one moment.
Yeah.
At least the judge is telling them where he's leaning. I mean, I don't like where he's leaning, what he's saying. I don't agree with the logic.
Thank you very much. That's all we have. And just
let's pick a date.
Are you late February, March? Okay, early March.
Let's go later in March.
All right, March 27th.
Is that Friday? Friday's generally best.
I can do that. It is a Friday.
Do it on Friday.
Thank you.
I don't know if we'll be in this room. I'll have to consult with the occupant who has generously lent me this room today.
I want to say one other thing, if I could, Your Honor. I am concerned that
Okay.
the protective orders that have been issued by the court have been the subject of violations. I'm not prepared to address it today, but I want to put the defense and the court on notice that I do think there's a basis for that argument, and I will plan on raising it at the next hearing.
Well, raise it first with the other side, so that they're aware of your concerns.
I will, of course.
All right. If it's not resolvable, then the court will step in. Nobody benefits by undermining the protective orders. Look,
this
again,
is such bullshit.
the way this court looks at this is that this is an important First Amendment issue, which should be decided by a jury of the defendant's peers to decide the mores of our society, whether or not this is journalistic activity or it's not journalistic activity. Let's try to focus on that, folks.
I absolutely agree with that, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Anything else we can do today? Oh, sir. March 27th. The purpose of that hearing to be determined, but could be one of those two things.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
All right.
Your Honor.
Both matters continued to March 27th. Time is at
Bye.
Free Turtleboy. Free Turtleboy. Free Turtleboy.
All joking aside, I appreciate Broken Baker's stream there, and you guys should definitely give him a follow if you're interested in the Turtleboy case, the Aidan Kearney case, because he does great coverage. Interesting at the end there, the points that were made. Number one, March 27th, I'm going to be there unless it gets postponed or changed. Hopefully it doesn't. The other point that was made at the end there, the judge, hold on, let me just go back to it for a second. I get too distracted.
Free Turtleboy. Free Turtleboy. Free
Side, so that they're aware of your concerns.
I will, of course.
All right. If it's not resolvable, then the court will step in. Nobody benefits by undermining the protective orders. Look, again, the way this court looks at this is that this is an important First Amendment issue, which should be decided by a jury of the defendant's peers to decide the mores of our society, whether or not this is journalistic activity or it's not journalistic activity. Let's try to focus on that, folks.
I absolutely agree with that, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Anything else we can do today? Oh, sir. March 27th. The purpose of that hearing to be determined, but could be one of those two things.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
So that's what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about the fact that this, damn it, I keep getting distracted by the chat. I can't. Oh my God. My short-term memory cannot be this bad. What was I just watching? They were arguing. Oh, I know. Okay, here we go. I had to talk it out because I didn't want to go back for a third time. I'll talk to you guys in chat after I do this. Basically, the judge is saying they have the new thing. It's March 27th. And then they were talking about, oh, I know. Cosgrove brought up the whole frickin' protective order. Okay. They're still trying to put Turtleboy in jail. Okay. And this goes back once again, like I said, to why I believe Karen Reed will continue to keep her distance from Aidan Kearney until he's exonerated from all charges, because she knows how these bastards operate, okay? Unfortunately, she did tell them, do your worst, and they definitely have done their worst, and they're not done doing it to her if they can get away with it. I think that's pretty clear. They're not happy that she's free, and they'd love to get her caught up in some more bullshit charges just to break her, because if you've seen Highlander, that, you know, when that one guy gets obsessed with I can't remember his name, but he was the husband in the past, and that guy Randall got obsessed with him. He had to break him. That's how they look at Kearney. They have to break her. You know, she looked really good going through it and held her head up high, but that shit, that damage, that's a lot they did to her emotionally. I hope she gets a lot of money and damages from them. But Turtleboy also, when he is exonerated, should also get a lot of damages. He spent time in jail away from his kids on a birthday. His son's first was a basketball game. All kinds of just horrific shit, right? On a false accusation, no less, with the accuser now on his side saying they made me say it. How does the prosecutor think with that conflict that you can be effective? A jury's going to be like, yeah, that's mouth. And also this guy doesn't make any sense. So yeah, you're free, Turtleboy. So it will be a joke. Seriously. So, you know. But Cosgrove at the end, bringing up him violating his protective order, it's just to try to make Turtleboy shit his pants. Okay? It's evil, honestly. It's evil. Because the intent is to cause distress. And Turtleboy's already worried every day of the week that he's going to get sent back to jail. Not because he's doing anything wrong, but because we have these people that we talked about in the beginning of this, these expanding universes of drama, most of them men, one of them his former girlfriend, trying to get him back in jail. So now she's like his ex-girlfriend, not his former guma, who's Lindsay, but his ex-girlfriend. I mean, she's like hardcore anti-Turtleboy now. I don't understand. Like, I do understand because I've studied that, but I'm not going to label. I'm just going to say this, okay? She released the minutes from the grand jury that Turtleboy had. Why did she have it? Because she was on his legal team. Was she being paid? No, she was volunteering. And that's perfectly logical, by the way. Because in Massachusetts, I don't think you have to go to paralegal school. And maybe in some states you do some, I don't know what it is, but if you're willing to learn and they want to hire you, you can do legal work, you know, which is fair because you don't always need a degree to be able to, like, you know, look at things and give value, right? I mean, you should have to kind of demonstrate it, obviously, but the point is that that's appealing to authority. Like, you have to have a degree in order for us to believe you. No, that you don't need a degree in order for some. If you know what you're talking about. So Meredith was, for all her other flaws, she's a human, but she's a very smart person, very smart person, and very good with fine details, and has a real passion burning inside of her as well, which may be why she and Turtleboy click, because they're both passionate. I don't know, but regardless, she's putting out things that were not meant for the public right now because she wants to get Turtleboy in trouble because she is a woman scorned. There's no other logical reason for it. Okay, let's just be clear about it. There's no other reason why you're going on and on while you're releasing videos of him crying or releasing humiliating experiences or making alliances across the pond with Australians, guys. I'm serious. Australians are involved in this excess drama. It's insane, the people that hate him, especially the men, like we talked about. But regardless about that, his ex-girlfriend is now the one causing problems and trying to get him back in jail by releasing the grand jury minutes. You can say, oh, it's his fault. He chose wrong, blah, blah, blah. Come on. She She seemed pretty trustworthy. And she also marked him up. She marked him, in my opinion. This is me, my opinion, see disclaimer. In retrospect, Turtleboy was a mark for her. When did she reach out to him? When he was in jail. He was really vulnerable. He had not a lot to the outside world, and a lot of people really didn't know what the fuck was going on. And if I'm honest, I wasn't sure either, because I had just started following Turtleboy for like whenever he was, I think he got arrested in December, and I'd been following him like since the beginning of this case. I mean, I saw the lacrosse and the ride out and all that stuff, right? And then when I heard that, I was like, I don't really know him that well. My perspective, normally I can tell, you know, I can sense something. Not always, but usually. And so I was surprised by the allegation, but it did take me aback and it made me kind of question. But of course, I'm not going to assume he's guilty. I just didn't understand the game that was being played at the time. Once I understood that, it was fine. But I think a lot of people kind of felt that way, mostly newcomers, like I was. I was new. The old school Turtleboy riders, Turtle Riders, they knew. Will was good. Will the Glare really took a chance there and went on his side. And that's paid off for him in dividends. And that's not why he did it. I don't believe that for a second. He did it because he has a heart for that. That's just the type of person the Glare is, you know. And the other person that did that was LTL Brian, LTL. You can see where that got him. He's now against Turtleboy, doesn't even talk about the case anymore. And, you know, that's where his got him, you know. So it's interesting, right? Why you do things, what your 10 is. It does matter. I do think that there is an altruism. I don't think we always do things because we expect others to do for us or we expect something for it. I do think care and love is giving without receiving, is giving without an expectation of receiving. I think it's a really, for me, it's a really important, it's an important way to live for me. I try all the time, and I'm sure I have some shadow side where I expect something in return or whatever, but it's rare. And when it surfaces, I work through it. But to truly give and to care and to love, I really believe it at least to consciously decide, like, I really don't expect anything for this, you know? I think that's what unconditional love is. I think that's what giving truly is. Any other kind of giving is not giving. It's a transaction. It's just a transaction. And, you know, a lot of people have those kind of relationships. Some people have those kind of friendships. Some people even have those kind of marriages. But for me, that's not real. That's not authentic. I need something way, way deeper than that. I'm not transactional. I'm not saying I'm perfect. We're all human, but let's try to do better, right? Wow, I really went off on a tangent, guys. I'm sorry.
All right.
Both matters continue to March 27th, time is 7.
All right, please. Free Turtleboy, free Turtleboy, free Turtleboy.
So this mofo at the end decides to bring up, which I consider this to be, and I was joking about being a lawyer or not or whatever, but I think ex parte is when you do something without informing the other side. So my understanding is if you're engaging in legal battle, you know, because this is a confrontational space here. Like that's the way it works, right? We're going to ask questions and stuff like that. Okay. So when you're engaging in that, it's my opinion that, damn, I just lost my thought again. And it's because I was looking at the chat again. I can't do it, guys. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off. This is attention deficit orders, if anybody didn't know. Let me listen to this for a second.
Free Turtleboy, free Turtleboy, free Turtleboy.
That's what it was. This is the ex parte thing. So the ex parte thing, right? I think like if you bring it up to the judge, you have to send like a copy to the other attorney, right? And if you don't, that's not the proper policy or procedure. Okay. Now at the very end, Cosgrove, I think that's what ex parte means. I don't know if that's a name for it, but I do know it's a thing in court. Like you can't, in other words, you can't ambush somebody. You can't come into the courtroom and be like, it's not the moment, like the detective moment, like, aha, the witness is here and they're going to fucking turn this whole thing upside down. You can't do that. You have to inform the other side before you do it. Even if it's, I mean, the movies is always like minutes before, but like, I'm pretty sure like there's a reasonable amount of time that you have the judge knows, the other side has to know. Unless everybody's finding out at the same time. That's my understanding of it. So at the very end, when Cosgrove lamely brings up this whole thing about he's not following the protective order, the judge says, well, did you bring it up to them? In other words, is he calling him out for being ex parte? I'm not sure. Maybe he did address it in a motion or affidavit. I don't know. Or is he actually just being an absolute POS, bringing this up on the sly just to make Turtleboy distressed? I mean, it's sick. Really. All because his ex-girlfriend, who was part of his legal team, has decided to be Judas or Medusa, whichever you prefer. Either way, she stabbed him so hard in the back. It's unbelievable. Okay? I mean, really, the betrayal. You might think you were betrayed by someone you love. How about they try to put you in prison, take you away from your kids? How about that? That's betrayal, man. That's brutal. Hey, but we all got to live with our choices. So, just be careful what you decide to do. Like Mason was telling us, be careful who you let into your chamber, right? Anyway, guys. Yeah, that's what Cosgrove's referring to. The fact that she is sitting there dumping documents on X and wherever, I don't know, that are not supposed to be for the public. Now, I have to make a disclaimer. I have not personally verified everything I just said. I'm going to say this. That's what I believe Turtleboy iterated, and I believe it to be the truth. Okay, if I'm wrong, you can let me know. But that's what I heard, and that's what I believe he's referring to. And I love that the judge played tennis with him and put the ball back into Cosgrove's court where it belongs. Hey, Cosgrove, were you a man? Were you a mensch? Did you go ask the other side about this yet? No, this is ex parte. Yeah, I'm glad the judge said that. So that's my YouTube presentation today, guys. And now I'm going to take a look at some of the comments. Let's see, guys. Da-dum-dum. I don't want to do something for someone to make them sad. Yeah. Oh, I think Bookham, it was about a case. Like when they go to argue different cases, they want to present, we saw this in Idaho, they want to present other cases that they can use as case law. And what you really want is like Supreme Court law. But if you don't have that, that decides on your behalf. But if the Supreme Court hasn't decided it, then you want something in your own state superior Supreme Court. And if they don't have it, then just anything in your state. And if your state doesn't have it, then just anything in the country, preferably more local to you, because it's different. It's like standard of care in medicine. People practice a little bit differently depending on where you live in the country. And it makes a difference when you're going to sue someone or you're going to charge someone. And so I think the Scientology aspect was just about that. They were presenting another case where Scientology was involved. This case was not local to Massachusetts, but somehow it was similar in terms of the prosecutor being recused. I think that's what the Scientology talk was about. So you guys are great. I really appreciate sorry, I'm looking at the chat, but I'm gonna actually sign off because I realize I'm a little tired and I'm hungry. So I really appreciate you guys being here though. Really, I do. The next court date is March 27th, and I plan on being there. And I saw a couple people mention in the comments about Sandra Birchmore. I am familiar with that case. Not in depth, but I am familiar with who she is, what the circumstances were that led to her death. And I do think it should be covered. So I didn't realize that it was going to trial soon. So I'm going to look into that. That case is just very, very, very sad. And those cops and what they did to that little girl and probably other little girls and maybe boys are monsters. So. All right, guys. Thanks again. And that's what's up.